Real estate developer Kimberly Vincelli is suing her former neighbor's boyfriend, Gregory Duncan, for vandalizing her BMW in a courthouse parking lot. Kimberly claims Gregory and her son Beau have a history of bad blood.
Yeah, this is case number 301 on the calendar in the matter of Vincelli versus Duncan. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Ms. Vincelli, Mr. Duncan is the boyfriend of your former neighbor.
Right.
Is that right, sir?
Yes.
And evidently, there was some difficulty that existed between you and your neighbor and the boyfriend. And you were in court about this difficulty. And it is your claim that sometime after the court proceeding, Mr. Duncan went out to the parking lot and vandalized your car. Mr. Duncan says he did not do that. Right?
Yes.
Who is this?
This is my mother.
Who is this?
This is Yvonne O'Connor, my witness, and my son, Beau, who is also a witness.
Okay. What were you in court for?
We were there on a civil harassment matter, Gregory and his girlfriend against myself, my son, and my husband.
What was the civil harassment case for, Mr. Duncan?
We've been harassed. My girlfriend has been harassed for over a year now from her and her whole family. She files claims, seems like weekly or monthly, against them, against her whole family, her mother, her father, everyone.
The plaintiff files claims against your girlfriend.
Yes.
And her whole family.
Yes.
And as a
yes.
And as a result of those claims that she files against your girlfriend filed a harassment case against her and her family.
Yeah, we were trying to get restraining orders that day.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Did they have a restraining order against your girlfriend?
No, they don't. Not that I know of.
Is that right?
I have one against her mother.
Just against her mother, but not against the girlfriend.
Right.
And your girlfriend was trying to get a restraining order against the plaintiff and her family. That's what you were doing in court?
Yes.
Were you there as a party or a witness?
I was trying to get one too, so I guess as a party.
How did you allege that Miss Vincelli and her family harassed you?
There had been a couple different incidents, one at her house in Chatsworth and a few other things.
Well, right now you haven't given me an answer. I asked you what kind of harassment against you.
There was a time when they cornered us, and her husband, who was a very large man, said for me to get out of my car and to fight him and do things like that. And we have pictures.
That's not her. I'm talking about her. You said you were trying to get a restraining order against her. That's what I want to know. What did she... I'm not interested in her husband. I'm interested in what she did.
I guess nothing.
Okay, and were you trying to get a restraining order against her, Mr. Duncan?
Yes, I was.
So you acknowledge that she didn't do anything to warrant a restraining order?
Okay, she did, but I can't think of it right now because I go to school every day and I'm probably not as prepared for this as I should be.
You have to be prepared. This is your time, Mr. Duncan.
I know it is.
All right. Here we go. You were in court, and what happened when you were in court, Ms. Vincelli?
They were explaining their story to the judge, and then the judge asked us our side, and we started to speak, and Mr. Duncan got very irate, told the judge to F off and other explicitives, and he kicked open the door, and we continued with the case with his girlfriend.
Did you leave the courtroom that day, Mr. Duncan?
And I did not tell the judge what she said. I said...
What did you say?
I was getting frustrated because she was saying I'd been arrested and I have a completely clean record and never been arrested in my entire life. I said to the judge, she's lying. I've never been arrested. She's lying about this. The judge told me to stop and to just let her talk. And I said, I mean, she's allowed to lie. I was getting really frustrated and I left the courtroom, yes. And I cussed, I yelled, but I didn't say anything in particular to the judge. But I was getting very frustrated because...
You have a temper problem, Mr. Duncan?
90% of the time, no. With this family, it seems like I do, yes.
How old are you, sir?
I'm 19.
Mr. Duncan, have you ever been in a court before you were in court with Miss Vincelli?
No.
Never been in a court setting before?
No.
Can I speak?
No.
As a witness?
No.
Since I was with him when he did leave?
No, you can't speak now.
Okay.
I'm trying to explain to your son that in court, everybody gets a chance to speak and tell their story. First one side, and then the other side. And what the judge was explaining to him was, when Miss Vincelli is finished, he will have an opportunity to respond. But don't interrupt her. Don't call her a liar. You will have an opportunity to speak. That's what the judge was saying to you, and you were getting frustrated.
That's not what she was saying, though. It's not. I'm sorry, it was what she was saying.
You just told me she was saying, don't interrupt her, let her speak.
She wasn't saying that. She was just Never mind. Okay,
Well,
I'm
no,
sorry.
tell
That's
me
what
what
she was
saying, Mr. Duncan.
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't know what she was saying. I have a bad memory.
Okay, so you left the courtroom. Now, how was your car damaged, Miss Vincelli?
He kicked the front bumper off on the driver's side. He keyed down the driver's side door. There's a fist mark on the hood, and then another fist mark on the top of the car.
Did you witness this, Miss Vincelli?
When we came out of court, he was screaming and yelling in the parking lot. He ran towards my car. We couldn't see him anymore, and all of a sudden we heard this noise, and he's screaming and he's kicking the bumper, and then all of a sudden he ran towards the street area.
Mr. Duncan, did the police ever question you with regard to this vandalism?
No, they didn't, and it was also said on something that she gave that she asked if I wanted to pay this $1,800, which I was never contacted about this.
I didn't get to anything yet about $1,800.
Okay. Sorry.
Do you have any other witnesses to the vandalism?
Yes, I did. They were walking out with me when this happened.
Step up, please. This is your son?
Yes, it is.
How old are you?
19.
You're her friend?
Yes.
You were there with her that day?
Yes, I was.
What happened when you left the courthouse?
We walked out to the parking area. The sheriffs were talking to the defendant's mom and the other person's mom. We saw
You mean
him.
his girlfriend's mother?
Yes. The sheriffs were speaking with them, and we were walking out to the parking lot to our cars. We saw him run out to Miss Vincelli's car, screaming and yelling. I turned to the sheriff and said, "Hey, can you help us out here? He's running towards our car. We need some kind of protection." And they said, "Oh no, he's leaving." And we saw him run to the car, kick the bumper, and run off. And that's when the sheriff said, "See, he's leaving." And that's what happened.
And you, sir, if I would ask you the same question, would you give me the same answer?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Have a seat. Do you have photographs of the car?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to see them, please.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He was having difficulty controlling his emotions.
He was having difficulty controlling his temper, just like he is now. Uncross your hands, Mr. Duncan.
And later today,
What kind of clothes were you wearing?
I do not recall at the time.
Well, were you wearing jeans? Were you wearing a tuxedo? Were you wearing a SpongeBob costume? What were you wearing?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kimberly Vincelli claims her BMW was vandalized by Gregory Duncan. Gregory denies the charge and claims Kimberly has been harassing him and his girlfriend.
Would you show these to Mr. Duncan, please? All right, Mr. Duncan, I'll hear you.
Well, now I guess we both get an opportunity to see what these pictures are about, because this is the first we have heard even what the specifics are.
I didn't ask you that. I didn't ask you that. Were you present when your son came out of the courthouse
Yes, I
that
was.
day?
I exited the court with him. He did not kick the door open. I went out with him. We did discuss the situation that occurred inside the courtroom with the bailiffs on the outside. He did walk away at that point. I watched him walk away. His friend had called him on his cell phone and was picked up and taken home. And the bailiff situation that they're referring to, they asked for the bailiff to escort them to their vehicle because they were afraid.
What were they afraid of, Mr. Duncan?
Because, as they want to say, he was screaming and yelling. He was not screaming and yelling. But
Miss Duncan, Miss Duncan.
this was a restraining
Miss
order
Duncan,
issue.
I'm speaking.
So,
I'm speaking. Has your son been under psychiatric care at any time in his 19 years?
no,
Is he currently taking any medication?
no.
You were in a courthouse with him, and clearly, when he was in that courthouse, he behaved inappropriately. Would you say that that is correct?
Yes,
That he could not control his temper? In a courtroom, would you say that's correct?
I would say that he was having difficulty controlling his emotions because
He was having difficulty
was
controlling
being-
his temper.
He was being falsely accused.
He was having difficulty controlling his temper, just like he is now. Uncross your hands, Mr. Duncan. Civilized people behave a certain way, Mrs. Duncan. And what you're not supposed to do is you're not supposed to make excuses for an adult child who has behaved badly. That's not to say that your son is a bad person. I don't think he's a bad person necessarily. I think that his girlfriend and he have had some difficulties with the plaintiff, and it was trying to be resolved in an orderly fashion in a court setting. And your son could not control himself, which should leave a parent with some Pause. I've had 5 children who were 19 years old. If any of my children couldn't control themselves in a courtroom, believe me, I would say, I got to get this child some help. He can't control himself now. Don't you see that?
I wanted to say something, and
Go
I
ahead.
have a feeling I'll forget before I say it.
Go ahead.
Do you have any daughters or just sons?
Both.
You have both. Have you ever had anyone say to your daughter, I'm going to rape you outside of your class because you get out of school at night? Have you ever had your daughter go out to her car at night after her night classes and see her tires slit? Because that's what happened to my girlfriend. Her son has said those things many times.
Mr. Duncan.
It's very
Mr.
irritating.
Duncan, has the plaintiff ever said anything to you or your girlfriend that would have required or given you license to behave the way you did in a courtroom? I'm not talking about her son. I'm talking about the plaintiff.
Yeah, she called and left a message that we're going to get him. We're going to get him after this court thing happened.
I'm not talking about after, sir. I'm talking about before.
God.
Okay. Miss Duncan, listen to me, madam. I think that you're not seeing the entire picture here. I think that you're being very short-sighted with your son's needs. I believe that your son needs some help. I've been in this business for over 30 years. I'm telling you, he needs assistance. And if he were my 19-year-old son, I would see to it that he gets that assistance, even if it's just anger management assistance. But I think he needs it. Clearly, he has a problem with his memory, as he's indicated.
I said that to you.
Shh, 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 shh. Mr. Duncan, shh. As he's indicated, do you see? He has a problem, Mr. Duncan. I don't think he's a bad young man, but I think that you're being short-sighted if you don't help him. What's the damage to the car?
They came back between $2,600 and $2,900, but I only sued for $1,800.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,800. That's all. Thank you.
No, please. Sure.
I think it's self-explanatory, and I think she did the right thing.
It's actually fairly ridiculous that somebody would have to do this to somebody.
That was mild today. He was on good behavior.
It's just amazing to me.
I hope it's the end of it.
I sure hope so. I really do sure hope so.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Frazier versus Sykes, step forward.
20-year-old student Donald Fraser is suing fellow student 20-year-old Eric Sykes for ruining his Dell laptop. Donald claims during a night of heavy drinking, Eric urinated on the computer.
You gentlemen go to college?
Yes, ma'am.
What school are you going to at the time of this incident?
College of Charleston, South Carolina.
And you?
College of Charleston.
And you?
They're the same, ma'am.
You belong to a fraternity, Mr. Frazier.
No,
You?
ma'am. No, ma'am.
You?
No, ma'am.
So you get drunk, dumb, and stupid all on your own. Is that what we're talking about?
College student Donald Fraser says while in a drunken stupor, fellow student Eric Sykes urinated on his laptop computer.
Hi, Mr. Frazier, it is your claim that while he was drunk and in a stupor, Mr. Sykes, after an evening of partying, was at your house and ruined your computer. And Mr. Sykes says, A, I don't remember ruining your computer. B, you have no proof it was me. It could have been other people there, and I don't know why you picked me. And for that, I say amen, because I don't know why you picked me. So you want to tell me in 30 seconds or less, Mr. Frazier, how Mr. Sykes damaged your computer and how you know it was Mr. Sykes that damaged your computer rather than one of your other drunken friends.
Okay. I went to sleep. Eric was sitting back.
This is Eric.
This is Eric, yes. Eric was sitting back in a chair, seemingly passed out. And what I found when I woke up was Eric sleeping on a couch 10 feet from my computer. My computer was on a white mini fridge like this. I went to my computer to turn on some music, and I found something wet on it. And I thought it maybe was water or a drink. Got closer, started to clean it up, smelled it, and realized that it was neither water or a drink. It was urine. And this was very disturbing to me. I woke everybody up.
How many people did you wake up?
My roommate.
And where was your roommate?
I shared a room with one of my roommates. He was in his bed. And my other roommate had his own room. He was in his bed.
And how long had you been drinking the night before?
I hadn't been drinking extensively because I had to be at work. I had to get up before everybody else.
What's extensively?
I probably had 3 beers.
And what about your two roommates? Were they drinking with you?
Mm-hmm.
Were they still sleeping when you got up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is this one of your roommates?
No, this is my witness, Daniel, who...
Oh, good. So we have a witness to him urinating into your computer.
Well, 4 days...
Well is not an answer.
4 days after this incident, Daniel woke up to the sound of Eric peeing on his coffee table under the same circumstance, very intoxicated.
So what you're suggesting is that Mr. Sykes needs a roadmap to the potty.
Yes, ma'am. If you, my picture here?
No, I don't want to see the picture.
Right.
It's on top of that. What you're suggesting is because it was a white refrigerator, he got confused.
Yes, ma'am.
It's possible.
Okay.
It's possible. Go ahead.
When we woke up, Eric said 3 things that were most important. He said he did not remember being there, that he did not know where he was when he woke up, and after discussing it, after waking everybody up, he said that he thought that he probably did it. And at this point, I was going to do everything I could to make sure that the computer maybe could work. I dried it out to make sure, because I wanted to fix it, you know, even if it had urine.
All right, I hear you. Did you have an accident on his computer?
Not to my knowledge, ma'am.
So you don't know. You were too drunk to know what you were doing the night before. Is that what you're telling me?
Like you said, I didn't recall coming to his house.
Well, let me ask you this question. When you got up in the morning, Eric, you were wearing your clothes?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of clothes were you wearing?
I do not recall at the time.
Well, were you wearing jeans? Were you wearing a tuxedo? Were you wearing a SpongeBob costume? What were you wearing? You woke up in the morning. Were your pants wet?
No, ma'am.
Was your fly zipped?
To my knowledge, yes.
Well, when you got up, did your pants fall down?
No.
Anything else you want to tell me, Mr. Frazier?
There's a lot of things on the computer beyond the cost of the claim, such as pictures and things that'll be gone unless...
So your first problem is you haven't established that old Eric here peed on your computer.
Eric knows he did it. All his friends know that he did it. He admitted it to me that morning, but he didn't want to...
Mr. Frazier, listen to me. In court, you need proof. And the fact that he was drunk and in the room doesn't mean that that's sufficient proof for a court that he damaged your computer. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, it's not the kind of case where we're going to take DNA evidence to establish the case. You could, perhaps, if you wanted to, but you didn't do that.
I figured it was maybe more expensive than the computer itself.
It may have been, but certainly on the facts that you've presented to me today, it is very possible that old Eric here is the culprit. Right, Eric?
It's possible.
But this is a court. We don't deal in possibilities. We deal in proof. And you don't have any proof. And the fact that 4 days later he was peeing on somebody else's coffee table is not proof.
Under the same conditions, highly intoxicated.
What can I tell you? You should have closed your computer and put it away. Now, if Eric knows that he damaged your computer and he looks like a nice young man, maybe he would want to contribute to a new one for you. But I certainly, from a judicial standpoint, can't find him guilty because you don't have any proof that he is guilty other than the fact that he was drunk and sleeping in the living room. Got it? Case is dismissed. That's all.
Sheindlin, this is case number 231 on the calendar, the matter of Kubas versus Arlene. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Miss Arlene, are you a licensed hypnotherapist?
I'm a certified hypnotherapist, yes.
Certified.
Yes.
Is that what they do?
Yes, there's not a license for hypnotherapy in this state.
Is that the state of California?
The state of California, yes.
And how long have you been a certified hypnotherapist?
For 9 years, Your Honor.
According to what I've read in your complaint, Ms. Kubas, you sought the defendant's services in order to help you stop smoking.
That's correct.
And you are suing her because not only didn't you stop smoking, but you say that she should be responsible for other stress that she put you through because of some vision that she had while she was treating you. Where did you find Miss Arlene?
I found her out of the yellow pages, Your Honor.
How long have you been a smoker?
Probably 45 years.
So you figured it was time you stopped?
My sister died of cancer last year, and I desperately wanted to quit. And so I discussed it with my husband about going to see a hypnotherapist because I had been under so much stress and wanted to quit so badly that out of sheer desperation I called this ad in the paper.
Do you have the copy of the ad?
Yes, out of the... Yes, I do. I explained to her my situation, and she told me that it was $295 and that she was 95% effective. The other 5% is usually people that smoke 3 to 4 packs a day. So I felt pretty secure in going to her, and she said, I have an appointment open at 12:30. This was at 11 o'clock. She said, can you be here? I live 50 miles away, but yes, I did go. And when I got there, I asked her how long had she been a hypnotherapist. She said 8 years. After this discussion, she asked me if I wanted to go ahead with it, and I said yes. So she proceeded to hypnotize me, and during this hypnotizing thing, the only thing she said pertaining to smoking was, when I want a cigarette, say to myself, I think I want a cigarette, but not now, maybe later. Instead, I'll have a handful of grapes. Well, Your Honor, I ate so many grapes, I was having other problems.
Just a second. Just a second. She never promised you anything other than to stop smoking.
She promised me I wouldn't gain weight.
No.
But anyway, she told me I had, after this session, she told me I had to give up Dr. Pepper, sugar, cream, milk, and I drink lots of water. I have a list of the things she told me to take.
Just a second. What date was that, by the way?
That was on July 12th.
Okay, so on July 12th you went there and you were smoking up until the time you got to her office, I assume.
Yes.
When you left her office on July 12th, you tell me that you ate a lot of grapes the next day.
Oh, yes.
But you didn't smoke.
Yes, I did smoke, Your Honor.
How much did you smoke the next day?
I smoked maybe 6 or 8 cigarettes.
Which is a lot less than you would smoke previously.
Yes, but I...
Okay. When were you supposed to go back?
I was to go back Wednesday on the 13th, or 14th. I was to go back July 14th.
So supposed to skip a day. Did you go back on the 14th?
Yes, I did.
What happened when you went back on the 14th?
I had complained to her about my bladder hurting me, and I had told her that I was still smoking. And she said it was probably the toxins emptying out of my body that was bothering my bladder. And she told me that I looked scattered. And I said, it's because I'm still smoking and I'm upset. And she says, well, it's going to take more than the 2 sessions and it'll take a week. She said, give me a chance. So she calmed me down and took me back and did the same thing almost that she did the first session. So I left there feeling a little more calmer, and I was to go back the following day on a Thursday. And when I got there that time, Your Honor, we went back to the therapy room, and the first thing she did was ask me if I knew of anyone with a man with an oval face, a beard, long hair, and lots of wrinkles. And I said, no. And she said, well, could it have been your deceased son? And I said, no, my son was young and he didn't have a beard. And she said, well, I didn't get a real good look, but she said it may have just had a mustache, because I told her my son had a mustache. The day before, she did something to me during hypnosis, of doing something with her hands. I didn't quite understand what it was. She said she realized that she had not done my feet, so she went back to do my feet. And she said when she went to do my feet, she turned and she saw this image that she had described to me, grimacing and cringing in my solar plexus.
In your stomach?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And she said she wasn't going to tell me, but she talked to her psychic daughter, and her daughter said she felt like she should discuss this with me. Well, before the last session, she asked me if it was possible during this hypnosis session if we communicated with this entity. And I said, well, sure. I mean, I felt, what the heck's going on? I said, what could it be? So during hypnosis, she would tap me on the forehead, and she'd say, now ask this person who they are and why they're here. So I said, who are you and why you're here? And no answer. And she tapped me again for this person to answer me. And this just went on, tapping me. So at the end, I asked him, would he go away or something like that. I couldn't remember it all, but when I came out, she said, well, he did say he would go away. So we got up, the session was over. I was sort of dazed, and I even hugged her and invited her to my home. And then when I got to my truck, I just sat there for a while, and I was thinking, my God, I'm possessed.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
There are some people that believe in these psychic sightings and some people that don't.
It frightened me.
I've never had that happen to me.
And later today,
He threw Mrs. Yeager's son up in the air, and he didn't catch him. And he fell and broke both arms.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Frida Cuba says hypnotherapist Donna Arlene failed at getting her to quit smoking. She wants her money back.
Ms. Cubas, what is it that you are suing Miss Arlene for?
Originally, Your Honor, I asked her for a refund so I could go to another hypnotist, someone that would hypnotize me to stop smoking and not do psychic things to me.
And what did she say?
I wasn't the one that asked her for the refund. My husband did.
You asked her for the refund?
Yes,
When did you call her, Mr. Cubas?
I believe I called her on the 21st of July, Your Honor.
Tell me about your conversation.
I explained to her that Frida was very upset and very frightened by the prognosis that she had given about the entity that was in her solar plexus. And I told her we didn't believe in that kind of thing, and I told her that I felt that Frida was entitled to a refund.
And what did she say to you?
She then said, look, I don't give refunds.
Okay. All right, Ms. Harley, I don't believe that based upon the fact that Ms. Cubas may still be smoking, that she is entitled to her money back. She didn't guarantee you that you would stop smoking. She said there's a 95% chance. Well, you may fit into that 5%. Certainly, those people that use gum, patches, pills, all the things that you can get by either prescription or over the counter, if they were 100% effective, then nobody in this country should or probably would be smoking. But the truth of the matter is, some people are successful with them and some people are not. It depends upon a lot of variables. The only question that I have is, you signed on for hypnotherapy to stop smoking. I want you to get to this vision.
Okay. Well, on the second session, when Frida came in, we did the session, and many times if I feel a person is troubled or there's negative energy around them, I do a clearance with my hands just of the energy around them before they leave. So I did that. I just brought my hands just to clear the energy around them. Okay? So I just did the clearing the energy, and as I came down to the end and went to brush away from her feet, I saw this entity. It just was, what I saw was just a circle with a man's face that looked grimacing. And it kind of surprised me because I've never had that happen to me. So when I went home that evening, I explained it to my daughter who has psychic abilities. And I just said, you know, something happened today and I'm concerned about it. So I explained to her what I saw, and she goes, I wonder why they would choose to show you that there. And I said, I don't know. And she goes, well, maybe you can help her by telling her, but ask her a couple of questions first. Ask her if she's been having a lot of pain in her solar plexus. Before that, when we first had the consultation, she had shared with me that she had used a psychic over the internet before, and we had talked about being an open spirit. So I asked her these questions, and then I told her, I said, I saw something, and I'm a little reluctant to say anything to you, but since we've talked about this before, I thought maybe it might help you if I shared it with you. It's up to you. And she goes, well, sure. Go ahead. We're both spiritual people. And I said, okay. So I explained to her what I'd seen, and I said, you know, I can't tell you anything about it because it's never happened to me before. I don't know. And
you weren't at that point, and certainly Ms. Cubas doesn't suggest at that point that you were using this as a ploy to get you to become a steady psychic customer.
I'm not sure of that, Your Honor. She did tell me I could come back.
That's different. Did she or did she not, Ms. Cubas, say to you, this has never happened to me before?
I don't remember her saying that because she frightened me so badly.
Okay. You did, Ms. Cubas, however, tell me that she asked you whether you wanted her to share with you this vision that she had had, and you said yes.
Yes, that's correct.
And you also, according to you, when you left, hugged her. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is it that makes you suggest, I mean, there are some people that believe in these psychic sightings and some people that don't. I can't put myself into the head of either one of those groups. But what is it that suggests to you that Miss Arlene was a charlatan?
Because I did not go to her for psychic treatment or that. I went to her to stop smoking. Not once during that session did she say anything to me about not smoking except to eat the grapes when I felt like not having a cigarette. Nothing was ever suggested to me to quit smoking or any suggestions or anything. When she told me about this psychic thing, she said, do you know anyone with an oval face, wrinkles, long hair, and a beard? And I thought to myself,
you already told me that. That's
no.
Not my, you already told me that. Ms. Cubas, you don't have a viable lawsuit against the defendant. She is a certified hypnotherapist. She's been practicing for 8 years. That's her treatment plan. It didn't work for you. And the fact that she had this vision, I assume it was legitimate, or at least she perceived it to be legitimate. She asked you whether you wanted her to reveal it to you. You said yes. She did not follow through. I assume that she told you that her daughter has psychic ability. She discussed it with her daughter. Her daughter said it's a good thing to share with her. She shared it with you. She asked you, I'm speaking, she asked you whether or not you wanted her to share it with you. Have you gone to another hypnotherapist since?
No.
No. Are you still smoking?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we're talking about a long time ago. How come you didn't go to somebody else?
Because it frightened me. I wanted to wait to see if I could get to find somebody reputable or that wouldn't do the psychic. Your Honor, she did not ask me anything except if I would like to communicate with this thing after she told me about it.
Ms. Cubas, 2 seconds ago you told me that you didn't remember. Now what you're telling me is you remember, and what she said to you was, do you wish me to find out what this person is, who this person is? And you said, yes.
And this was after
just a second. And you said, yes. You didn't say to her, no, I don't believe in that stuff. I think there's a lot of baloney. I'm here to stop smoking. You said,
yes.
Yes. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
That's one of the best ways to quit smoking.
When I wanted a cigarette, just say,
Play a better game of golf.
I think I want a cigarette.
Get rid of fears, phobias.
But not now, later.
Pass tests, do public speaking.
I think I'll have a handful of grapes.
I never told her to eat grapes.
Well, how many grapes can one person eat before they start having other problems?
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Yeager versus Sutton. Step forward, please.
Operations trainer Brenda Yeager is suing construction worker Albert Sutton for medical bills and pain and suffering on behalf of her 8-year-old son, Jacob. Brenda says Jacob broke both of his arms when Albert threw him in the air and dropped him.
Why, Mr. Sutton, I hardly know what to say to you, sir. Bird, 30 seconds or less. I assume that this is the young man who was injured. They were playing a game, some sort of a game in a park. Miss Yeager is going to tell me, what kind of game was it?
Soccer practice.
Soccer practice. And Mr. Sutton has a child?
Yes.
Who was also at the soccer practice. And during a break in the activity, Mr. Sutton was playing with the kids. He is not a bad man. He is not an evil man. He's not a malicious man. He's just, let me be kind, short-sighted. So he was throwing his son up in the air, right?
Yes.
And when he got finished throwing his son up in the air and catching him, he threw up Mrs. Yeager's son. I mean, he didn't throw up Mrs. Yeager. He threw Mrs. Yeager's son up in the air. And he didn't catch him. And he fell and broke both arms. That's what happened.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And he was in casts, and he was out of commission for a while. When did this happen?
October 28th, 2003.
And Ms. Yeager is suing Mr. Sutton for $5,000 for both their out-of-pocket medical expenses and for pain and suffering. So now that I've given you the backdrop, because this is not difficult, the facts were not difficult, they were almost conceded by the parties, Mr. Sutton, I will hear you.
When my son had his break, he asked me to throw him up in the air. I caught him. Other kids saw it. They asked their parents if they could do it. I threw up 4 or 5 other kids before I got to Jacob. Jacob, I threw up. He pushed off my chest. I couldn't catch him or get to him as quick as possible. And that's when he fell and hit the ground. But I had to, he asked his dad for permission, because my son even saw him go over and ask him and hurt him.
Did you give permission to Mr. Sutton to throw your son up in the air?
No, ma'am.
Tell me your name.
Matt Rice-Mackley.
What did you hear, Matt?
I heard Jacob walk up to his dad, and he asked his dad, he said, "Dad, could that guy throw me up?" And his dad said, "Yeah."
Okay, I like analogies. Let's say you were a very experienced archer. And what you used to do with your son was you would have him sit under a tree and put an apple on top of his head. and split the apple in two with your bow and arrow. And your son was used to that. And he would sit there very quietly, very still, and you thought it was okay to do that. And then Jacob said, oh, I want to do that. And let's say I believe your son, which I don't, that he heard him go over to his father and said, could I sit under a tree and let Mr. Sutton put an apple on top of my head and try to knock it off with an arrow? And his father, in some psychotic break, said, sure. And Jacob sat under the tree. He put an apple on his head. Unfortunately, Jacob wasn't as good at it as your son, and he zigged. And you got him instead of the apple. Whose fault would that be? Jacob's?
No, ma'am.
His father's?
No, ma'am.
You get my point? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all.
Number 255 on the calendar in the matter of Thomas versus Johnson. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Anybody who's been to court before, raise your hand. Were you a litigant?
No. Traffic court.
And you?
Criminal court.
Criminal court. I assume you weren't a prosecutor.
No.
Right?
No.
Good. So we all know what court's about. Court's about telling the truth.
Truth.
So that's what we're going to do today, right, ladies?
Yes.
I have cross complaints. Each of you claimed that the other damaged their car purposely by breaking windows. And each of you say, I didn't do her window, and I didn't do her window.
I didn't do her window.
I didn't do her window.
She has a child with him.
No.
With who?
With my cousin. He's not here.
Where is he?
He's in jail.
Ah! He's in jail. A testament to your good judgment.
Yes.
And according to your complaint, there was some sort of altercation involving the two of them, your cousin and his then ex-girlfriend and the mother of his child. And since then, there's been some bad blood between the two of you. So I want you to tell me when you claim she damaged your car, where the car was, and who witnessed it.
Okay. My car was at my house in my driveway. It was about 5:30 a.m. I don't have the specific date. I know it was in July. I wasn't there. I have a witness that says that shows everywhere where I was at. That says
which one is the witness?
She's the witness to who I was with, and he's the witness that seen her damage my car.
Well, I don't care who you were with. I'm not your social secretary. I just want to know who saw her damage your car.
Okay, he saw her damage my car,
ma'am.
Rick.
Okay, step up. Tell me your name.
My name is Rick Howard.
How do you know her, Rick?
I used to work with her a couple years ago.
And what were you doing up at 5:30 in the morning on this date in July that we don't remember?
Smoking a cigarette.
Where?
On her balcony.
What were you doing in her house?
She went out of town, so I was staying there, house sit, because she had problems with... She has problems with her neighbors, so I was staying there.
So you got up very early, you went out on the balcony to smoke a cigarette.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you see?
I heard an alarm go off, so I went downstairs because I thought it was my car, because my car's been stolen before. When I ran downstairs and I turned the corner, I seen Tiffany standing behind the car, like with a blunt object in her hand.
With a what?
Blunt object.
And did you know Tiffany before?
I don't know her, but I know of her.
No. When you say you know of her, had you seen her before?
Yes.
No.
Where had you seen her before?
At a high school.
How many years ago?
About 4 years ago.
And you hadn't seen her in 4 years?
No.
Get to you in a minute.
Okay.
What did you say to her?
I was like, A. I just yelled out A.
And when you yelled out A, what did she do?
She left.
How did she leave?
She got in her car.
What kind of car?
A white car.
So what did you do?
I went back upstairs.
Well, didn't you go and look to see what happened to her car?
Nah, I figured that the window was broken because I heard the window break. So I went back upstairs.
What do you mean you figured that the window was broken? You mean you didn't go over to look at the car?
No.
You figured it wasn't your car, you didn't have any...
No, it wasn't that it wasn't my car. It was just that I heard the window break. So she had an object in her hand, so I figured that the window was broken. So I went back upstairs to get my phone, and then I came back downstairs.
When you got your phone, who did you call?
I called April.
Where was she?
Somewhere in the Bay Area.
And you told her what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Did you call the police?
Another lady who was standing across the street, I called the police.
Did the police arrive that day?
Yes, I did.
Did you speak to the police?
Yes, I did.
Did you give them a description of the person that you saw?
Yes.
Did you tell them who it was?
Yes.
You told them by name?
Yes.
Did you get the name from Miss Thomas, or did you get the name from knowing her yourself from high school?
Thomas told me her name from a picture, because she has a picture of her in her house.
So when you told her somebody just came and busted the window out of your car, and they had a white car, and she said to you it must have been Miss Johnson, is that right?
She didn't say it must have been Miss Johnson. Like, she looked familiar from the pictures that she has in her house, and that's how I recognized her, other than I knew her from high school.
What are you doing with a picture of her in your house?
I have a picture of her and her son at my house. We have like a lot of family gatherings, and she comes because her son is included in our family. And when we were tight, we used to take pictures, and I'd keep them in my house. And even though that they're not together, that's still his mother, so I would have the pictures.
Okay. Now, Miss Johnson, let's get to you.
Okay.
Nope, I didn't ask you a question yet. Don't start. You may be seated. Now, it is your claim that Miss Thomas busted a window in your car.
Yes.
When do you claim she did that?
And this was in June. I never seen him a day in my life.
I didn't ask you anything about that. I asked you about your car.
Okay, this is the real story. We was at a club. We went to a
Listen
club
to me.
in June.
I'm in charge here.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You didn't call the police?
No.
You didn't speak to her afterwards and say, you better fix my car?
No.
You mean you just got even?
No, but she's trying to say...
No. I asked you a question.
No.
I think you did.
And later today...
Who should pay for his window?
They weren't antagonizing the situation.
I'm asking you who should pay for the window.
They should pay for it.
Who's they?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. April Thomas says her cousin's ex-girlfriend, Tiffany Johnson, vandalized her Dodge Neon by breaking her window. Tiffany says April did the same thing to her car.
In what month do you claim she damaged your car?
June 25th.
What time on the 25th
like
of June?
12:30 to 1 o'clock.
In the morning?
No, at nighttime. Yeah, morning, yeah. It is morning.
Where was your car?
At a club.
So tell me what happened.
I was parking. My cousin pulled in first. I was parking my car. And as I was parking my car, Miss Thomas jumped in front of my car and told me I cannot park here. She is saving this park for my friend, and she's on the freeway to get there.
So you're moving into a spot. She blocks the spot, and she says, I'm saving it.
Yes.
And you said?
You can't save a park. You can't stand and save a park. It's free parking. My car was, I was so close to hitting her for her just standing in front of my car. So I just parked my car and got out. And she started...
Just a second. So she's standing in the parking space, and you said, well, you're going to get run over, but I'm parking here.
Yes.
So you parked there in the spot.
Yes.
Okay, and she ultimately moved out of the way.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
It was my friend's birthday. That's how I remember the date, because we were all going out. And as I got out my car, she's talking about, you don't want it like this, or you already know about these hands. You don't want to see nobody in my family. We just started talking a lot, just started talking to me, I don't want this, and I just walked away. So we walked down the street by the clubs, then we walked to Old Sacramento, and I just had a funny...
Holy. You went to the club. What happened when you got to the club?
We didn't go in because it was about to close anyways.
And from there you went back to your car?
I went to Old Sacramento, walked to Old Sac.
I don't know where that is, nor do I really care. When did you go back to your car?
In like 20 minutes.
20 minutes after you parked your car and had this altercation with the plaintiff, you went back to your car. And what did you find when you went back to your car?
1,000 pieces of glass broke all over my driver's window. And it was so many people out there telling me, the girl that you...
Don't tell me what anybody else said. Driver's window?
Yes.
What window of your car was broken?
My back windshield.
Okay, so you found your window broken?
Yes.
Now, other than the fact that you had had this altercation with her about the parking space,
yes,
did anyone else who was here today witness her damaging the car?
Crystal.
Crystal. I'm going to take your testimony, Crystal. Step up. Crystal, how do you know Miss Johnson?
I don't know her.
Where do you work?
I stay at home with my son.
And what were you doing out at 1 o'clock in the morning on June 25th?
I was going to the club too.
Who were you going with?
Some friends.
Tell me what you saw.
Okay, Tiffany had pulled up. April jumped in front of her, told her she couldn't park, and then Tiffany parked anyways. Got out of the car, started walking off. April started yelling at her. Tiffany walked off. One of April's friends had pulled up a couple minutes later, and they had got in the car, drove off, came back. Like a few minutes later, April had got out of the passenger side, threw something at Tiffany's car, and jumped in the car and took off.
And how come you stayed around the parking area that long?
Because I was sitting in the car across the street talking to some friends.
How did it come about that you met Miss Johnson and told her what happened to her car?
Well, we were still there when she had come walking back.
So you told her what you saw?
Yeah.
Did you call the police, Miss Johnson?
No.
How come?
It was late at night. I just knew it was her. That's why I didn't even call the police, because I didn't even think it would go this far with me and her. I know April for a long time.
Well, did you call her the next day?
No, I asked her cousin, my son's dad, told me that she was going around the family acting like she done something very well. And he was mad because all the glass that was in my car, my son cut his hand.
So you mean you didn't call the police?
No.
And you didn't speak to her afterwards and say, you better fix my car?
No.
I don't understand that. You mean you just got even?
No, but she's trying to say...
No. I asked you a question.
No.
I think you did.
Okay, I did.
That's my girl. That's it.
Yeah.
You didn't get mad.
No.
You got even.
Yeah.
Love it.
Like when it works.
Like it when it works. Right?
Yep.
Very good. So how much did it cost you to fix your window?
Can I add that also she must have stuck something in my door lock because it doesn't turn anymore.
How much did it cost? Listen.
I'm listening.
How much did it cost to fix your window?
It was $344 for the window, and it came to $253 for the tint.
For the what?
The tint on the window is tinted black.
Why?
Because all my windows are tinted black to keep the sun out.
$344, is that right? It cost you to fix the window?
Yes.
How much did it cost you to fix your window?
$300, and I had to get a rental car because I have to wait till my window to come in.
It cost you just about the same amount of money.
Yes.
Right? Did you both feel good afterwards?
No.
Mama? Did you feel good?
I didn't do anything.
Oh,
sure you did.
Yes, you did.
Of course you did.
She's a devil in disguise.
Of course you did. Now, my only problem with both of you is, I mean, you're acting like children.
Yeah.
Which is, shh. You're acting like children. The only problem that I have with both of you is, why do you visit your childish behavior on the court system? Why do we have to become involved in your childish behavior? You both did something wrong. It ends up costing you both money, right?
Yeah.
Goodbye. Case is
Our
dismissed.
excuse, you may step out.
I didn't think it would come this far with her breaking my window. I admitted that I went back and broke hers.
She thinks that I broke into her car when I didn't, so it's just plain out ignorance.
I guess she want to be like me, but she can't.
You can see that she's ignorant. She doesn't know the day from night, from 12 a.m. to 12 noon.
I'm cuter than her.
She is just really anal and acts like a true baby mama. We would call it ghetto.
Her attitude is ugly, just like her face.
She's a sloppy CH.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Terry versus Barnes. Step forward, please.
General contractor Stephen Terry is suing his neighbor, 24-year-old restaurant manager Roger Barnes, for throwing a rock through the front window of his house. Roger says Stephen's brother was antagonizing him.
Mr. Terry, Mr. Barnes is your neighbor. It's your claim that on a particular date, which you'll tell me in a moment, he came to your house, he was drunk, he took a rock, he threw it through your window, you wanted to pay for the window. Mr. Barnes says it wasn't a rock that broke your window, it was his jacket that broke your window and its heavy buttons, so he's not paying for your window, right?
Right.
What date did he break your window?
It was St. Patrick's Day this year.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Are you Irish?
Nope.
But you celebrate with the Irish?
Yeah.
Were you celebrating on St. Patrick's Day?
Yes.
Were you a little drunk?
A little bit.
Okay, so your jacket broke the window?
Yeah.
No, not yeah. Yes was good. Yes was good before. Yes, so you should stick to yes.
Yes.
Tell me how it came about that your jacket broke the window.
Well, actually, I was at my house with my brother here. He's a witness.
Just get to the window, will you please?
All right, well, we got an
I'm
argument.
interested in the jacket. How the jacket which was on your body initially, left your body, according to you, caused the breaking of Mr. Terry's window?
Well, I was outside, and we were in a big argument. And
Who was in an argument?
His brother and this guy named Eric. And basically, I thought I was going to have to defend myself against these two guys, and I ripped it off and flung it to the side, and as I did, it broke their window.
Well, show me how high the window was, sir.
It's about, at the bottom of the window.
But when you say you flung your jacket, you indicated you flung the jacket to the ground.
Like this. Over that way.
Now, show me how you do that, sir. Show me how you do it up high enough to hit the window.
Yeah,
Don't hit Mr. Terry again.
I won't. Sorry. You could feel it. It's a pretty heavy jacket.
So it was the jacket that broke the window. Yeah. So it's not your fault.
Well, if they wouldn't have been antagonizing me outside, it would have never happened. I was trying to leave and go back to my house. You know, we were in a big argument.
Let me ask you this question. Was Mr. Terry there?
Mr. Terry was there, but he
was
in the
antagonizing you?
No, Stephen wasn't.
And who has to pay for his window?
Well, I don't think I should.
Well, who should be? Bird should pay for his window?
No.
Maybe I should pay for his window.
No.
Maybe this camera person should pay for his window.
No.
What do you think? No? Who should pay for his window?
If they weren't antagonizing the situation...
I'm asking you who should pay for the window.
I think they should pay for it.
Who's they?
Stephen and Ryan.
But he wasn't responsible in any way, sir.
I know.
It's not his jacket. Did you get beat up that day?
Nope.
So maybe you were wrong about them trying to antagonize you. You think it's possible that the libation that you consumed on St. Patrick's Day impaired your judgment? Is that a possibility, Mr. Barnes?
Well, they just set me off.
Is that a possibility that the libation that you consumed on St. Patrick's Day impaired your judgment, sir?
Probably had a little bit to do with it, but not much.
All right. I'm not going to torture you much more, sir. This is my daily exercise. It's my breathing exercise for the day. You understand that? Do you think that the fact that you were drinking had more to do with the fact that the window got broken than Mr. Terry?
Well, I mean, if his brother wasn't outside...
Not his brother.
Okay.
He's not right. I'm not my brother's keeper. I'm talking about Mr. Terry.
Okay, no.
So that your drinking had more to do with the window than Mr. Terry's...
Than Stephen did, yeah.
So this is what I suggest you do, sir. How much was the window?
I have a bill for everything. I'm a contractor. I fixed it myself. So
good. How much was it?
$500.
What?
It's an old window. It broke both the panes, and they're old windows.
You're only suing for $325, sir, so don't tell me that you paid $500 to have the window fixed.
I didn't pay for it. That's how much I would charge to do it myself, but that's okay.
How much did you pay for it?
It's for the glass and the materials?
Yeah.
$100.
$100. And you are a contractor, so you bill for your time. Is that right? And how much do you get paid for an hour?
$55.
$55 an hour. How many hours did it take you?
7.
Suing for $325. That's very reasonable for a window. Now, this is what I'm going to tell you, Mr. Barnes. I want you to listen to me very carefully, because you're not clouded by libation now, are you? If you believe that it's somebody else's fault that your jacket that was on your back broke Mr. Terry's window, I suggest that after you pay Mr. Terry $325, you sue those people that you think are responsible. Is that fair?
Sounds fair to me.
Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $325. Thank you.
Yeah, this is case number 269 on the calendar in the matter of Zilma versus Zemlicka. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, huh?
Ms. Zilmer, how long did you room with the defendant while you were in college?
We have lived together for 2 years.
And then, according to your complaint, you recently signed another year's lease.
Right.
And the defendant moved out prior to that second lease starting, leaving you to pay 14 months' rent.
Right.
On your own.
Yep.
The year on the new lease plus 2 months on the old lease. And Ms. Zemlicka says that she absolutely moved out because you invited people to the house, you had underage drinking parties, people either stole her property and or damaged her property. It was really unsafe for her to stay there, and that you should have tried to get a new roommate for the new lease or gone to the landlord, tried to negotiate out of the lease, but she is certainly not responsible. When did you, Ms. Zemlicka, start to have problems with the plaintiff with regard to who she was bringing into the apartment?
The first incident where I began to feel that things were unsafe occurred on January 25th, 2004. During that weekend, I was not present at the apartment. I had gone to my hometown, to my parents' house, and during that weekend, Kaylin Zilmer had several people over, and there was an underage drinking party that occurred.
How did you know that?
I know that because I was told by both the plaintiff and by a mutual acquaintance of mine.
Well, you can't tell me anything about the mutual acquaintance. Did you have a discussion with Miss Zilmer?
Yes, I did.
About it? Tell me about the discussion.
I came back from my weekend away, and she told me that she had had 2 friends over and that they had been drinking, and that they had been drinking quite profusely. And one of the
she didn't say that. She didn't say they'd been drinking. Listen to me.
Okay,
Ms.
she said that they had been drinking.
Okay, Ms. Zemlicka, don't embellish. If you embellish, I think you're lying, and if you're lying, I'm not interested in hearing you. Do you understand?
Okay. Yes.
All right, that was January 25th. Let's move on.
Your Honor, there was another event that occurred on January 25th that concerned me. Jason was there, and he drank so much that he vomited blood in the bathroom. The paramedics were called. 911 was called. Although all 3 of them were underage, no tickets were issued.
Not true, Your Honor.
January 25th, what happened?
I gave no alcohol to this person who came over.
Well, who was the person?
He brought his own alcohol.
Who was the person?
It's a mutual friend of ours.
And he was drinking so much he got really sick.
You're right, and we did call 911.
Okay, fine. What's happened next?
After January 25th, although the incident worried me, I figured it was a one-time event.
Let's get on.
Okay, sorry.
I have other things to do today.
During the week of April 26, 2004 to May 2nd, 2004, Kaylin had a friend staying at the apartment for the duration of the week. And during this entire week, my room door was closed. I would come home at the end of the day. Things would be rearranged. I was accused of things I didn't do. I would get up in the morning, leave to go to my student teaching assignment, and I would come back at the end of the day, and Kaylin's guest would say to me, well, what the hell were you doing? Why were you slamming doors this morning? I wasn't slamming doors.
Okay, next. Move on.
Next. She had an underage drinking party on May 1st, 2004. During this underage drinking party, chairs belonging to me were broken. A fight occurred that I was told about by both Kaylin and Mindy.
Okay, so you weren't happy. When did you move out?
On or around June 14th, 2004.
When had you signed a new lease?
In the middle of March.
So in March you signed the new lease, and when was the term of that lease?
The term of that lease was set to begin on August 15th, 2004.
And you moved out in June?
Correct.
Why didn't you get a new roommate?
Ms. Zemlicka had left a note for me the last day she moved out saying she'd be back in August.
Can I see it, please?
And aside from that note and all...
Home for the summer, back on Sunday for the rest of my stuff, back for good in August. When did you write this note?
When I left in June.
Well, if you left in June, were you intending to come back?
At that point I was, because I had not yet talked to my lawyer.
You see, Ms. Zemlicka, if you were moving out for cause and you wrote her a note and say, I no longer consider it safe here, please try to get a new roommate in June or in May, because a lot of these things happened in May, I would say to the plaintiff, listen, you have an obligation to mitigate your damages. In June, the possibility exists for her to still get another roommate. But if she's holding off because you've assured her that you're coming back in August, that's unreasonable. You were fooling her, right? You're her father?
Yes, I am, Judge.
Sure. You were fooling her. You were saying, I don't know what... You can move over. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I want an opportunity to speak to my lawyer, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do. Now, when did you finally tell her that you were not going to move back?
I sent notice.
When?
June 23rd, 2004. I have a copy of the letter right here.
Let me have it. Where's the notification that you sent to the plaintiff?
I did not send notification to the plaintiff.
Why not? June 23rd, you sent notification to the Capitol Center Apartments. Why didn't you send her notice?
I did not send her notification because things had deteriorated so rapidly and so far at that point that I did not feel safe talking to her anymore. I had received...
Nobody asked you to talk to her. What you have to do is send her a notice. And you never did.
I did not. However, my parents were in contact with her parents and did inform her mother that I would not be moving back in.
How do I know that? That's hearsay.
No, Judge, I talked to her mother. I'm Jennifer's father, and I did talk to her mother and said it's no longer capable of being resolved. Kaylin doesn't want to talk to Jennifer. Jennifer does not feel safe there, so there's nothing that can be done except to move out.
Your Honor, my hearsay was that he had talked to my 18-year-old brother, and that my mom actually talked to...
Just a second. They did the wrong thing. You may have done the wrong thing by having these people over that she didn't want over her home when she's not there. You understand that. But you have absolutely no right to first send her a letter indicating that you were coming back in August, despite the fact that there had been problems, so you were tricking her. Then you went to see a lawyer. Your lawyer gave you whatever advice the lawyer gave you. As a result of that, you did have the good sense to send a notice to the apartment complex. Did you get an answer from the apartment complex?
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Let me see the answer.
They did not contact me in writing. They contacted me through a voicemail.
No. That's hearsay. Because if they were going to let you out of the lease so that she was no longer responsible under the terms of that lease, it would have been in writing. And you did not get that. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I believed I needed to move out to protect my own personal safety.
And you have an absolute right not to live someplace where you're uncomfortable. You don't have the right to trick her, which you did.
And later today,
there's no way to tell whether it was my Tommy guns, cherry bombs, black widows, 4th of Julys, etc., that actually caused the damage. That's your defense.
Yes, ma'am.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Kaylin Zillmer says ex-roommate Jennifer Zemlicka owes for breaking their apartment lease. Jennifer says it wasn't a safe place to live.
Your Honor, I was also sent a letter by Kaylin Zillmer claiming that she was responsible for the lease and for the rent because she was still living there. And that's, I received in July.
That would be my half of the rent.
Of course she's still responsible because she's still living there. That doesn't mean you're not responsible. You wouldn't be responsible if you did the right thing. You did the wrong thing.
I believed I needed to move out to protect my own personal safety.
I don't disagree with you. Not your own personal safety. It had become uncomfortable for you to live there. Put your hand down. It had become uncomfortable for you to live there, and you have an absolute right not to live someplace where you're uncomfortable. You don't have the right to trick her, which you did. You tricked her into thinking that you were coming back at a time when this is, I assume, a college town where people look for apartments up until the end of the school year. You led her to believe that you were, in fact, coming back in August. She did not seek another roommate. You notified the apartment complex of your intention not to come back, but you never notified her. You could have just as soon sent her a copy of the letter. Then you would have put her on notice. Then I would have said, now listen, you have the obligation to mitigate your damages starting in June. You may not be able to find a roommate right away. Maybe she's only liable for 6 months' rent or 3 months' rent until you find a roommate.
And Your Honor,
but you didn't do the right thing. You can't just walk out. Now, who's living in the apartment?
I am, Your Honor.
Who else?
Just me.
What efforts have you made since you were notified that she was not intending to come back to try to find another roommate?
I have been to different websites. I have left up flyers around campus. I have a website to roommates.com, so I have made efforts to cover her half of the rent.
Just a second. And what's the rent on the apartment?
It's $940 a month.
When were you notified that she was not going to move back to the apartment?
In August.
Are you telling me that you didn't know until August that she wasn't coming back? Is that what you're telling me?
That's right.
Okay. Where do you live?
I live, Kelly Zillmer. I live down the road from Kaylin.
Who do you live with?
I live with 4 other girls.
When did you sign your lease on that place?
Well, we signed the lease in December for the upcoming year starting in August. So our lease started August 15th and runs till August 14th next year.
And if you could find another roommate at your house, you could move in with your sister. Is that right?
Well, there's not many people looking for roommates anymore since college started.
Well, people come in January, do they not?
Yeah.
Sure they do. So we have September, October, November, December, January. That's 5 months, right? She's got to pay you for 5 months. You did not give her adequate notice. You gave her, as a matter of fact, no notice whatsoever of your intention to move. It was only through a third party that she found out that you did not intend to come back. You cannot do that. She's obligated to pay for the rent, and she's the one who's suffering for it because you evidently found another place to live. You're paying nothing, and she's paying for both of you. That's unreasonable. You have a right to move out of the apartment if you feel unsafe. You also have an obligation to give her notice of your intention and not to trick her, which you did. You tricked her, and you can't do that. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,350. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
It was concern for my personal safety and also concern with the irresponsible acts that were going on, that they might negatively impact my teaching career and my future in the teaching profession.
I am not a big drinker. I do not keep drinks in the house. I have never used drugs. So I don't really know where this all stemmed from.
Some people just aren't compatible when it comes to living together.
I'm just real happy it's over.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Bump versus Hansard, step forward, please.
Policeman Marcelo Bump is suing his neighbors, Jamie Hansard and his brother Nathan Hansard, for damaging his Mustang GT when they shot off fireworks on the 4th of July.
Mr. Bump, the two defendants are your neighbors.
Yes, ma'am.
And it is your claim that last July 4th, your two neighbors were setting off firecrackers. Some of the firecrackers landed on your car.
Yes, ma'am.
Causing damage to your car's paint.
Yes, ma'am.
And you want them to pay for the damage.
Yes, ma'am.
The two defendants acknowledged that they were setting off firecrackers.
Yes, ma'am.
But that there were a lot of people setting off fireworks. And there's no way to tell whether your fireworks were the ones that actually caused the damage.
Yes, ma'am.
Marcelo Bump says neighbors Jamie Hansard and his brother Nathan Hansard damaged his brand new Mustang GT when they shot off fireworks on the 4th of July.
Now, how old are you?
30.
And you?
I'm 25.
Are you related to each other?
We're brothers.
Do you live together?
Yes.
Who else lives with you?
My 3 children.
Now tell me about the fireworks you were setting off.
We were shooting fireworks that...
What kind?
They're different names. Some Tommy guns.
Tommy guns.
Cherry bomb.
Cherry bomb.
Black Widow. Black Widow. 4th of July.
Just a minute. Black Widow.
4th of July.
So you had at least one of each of these things.
Several.
Where did you buy them?
North Carolina.
Where do you live?
Georgia.
You bought them in North Carolina. And where did you shoot them off?
In our parking lot.
In Georgia.
Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't you buy them in Georgia?
Because you can't buy them in Georgia.
Why not?
They're illegal.
So you just traveled a little bit and went to North Carolina and bought them there.
Yes, ma'am.
And despite the fact that the law precludes you from using them in Georgia, you used them.
Yes, ma'am.
And now you expect a court to be fair to you. Is that what you're telling me?
I admit I broke the law. But damaging his vehicle is a different story.
Just a minute. No, you're not saying that you didn't damage his vehicle. What you're saying, I believe, is there were a lot of people that were violating the law, and there's no way to tell whether it was my Tommy guns, cherry bombs, Black Widows, 4th of Julys, et cetera, that actually caused the damage. Because there were a lot of people.
There were a lot of people shooting fireworks, so...
There's no way to tell. Is that right?
There's no way to tell that it was ours, no.
Correct. That's your defense.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't believe that his vehicle was damaged by fireworks, period.
Fine. That's a different story. There was no damage to his car, then you wouldn't be responsible. But let me tell you something. When you break the law, and you broke the law in front of your 3 children, which is even more vile, because then what you're teaching your children is there are certain laws that are meant to be broken. There are certain laws you can pick and choose what laws you want to obey. That's the message you're sending to your children. It's ridiculous for the state of Georgia, where we live, not to have fireworks. So you don't have to obey that law. If you want to shoot off fireworks, you can. Is that the kind of message you want to give to your kids?
Some may portray it that way, yes.
What do you mean some might portray it that way? That's exactly what you did. You knew it was against the law to purchase fireworks. You knew it was against the law to shoot off fireworks in the state where you live. Despite that, you, who are the custodial parent for 3 children, who was supposed to teach them the difference between right and wrong, you've taught them that they can selectively choose what laws they want to adhere to and what laws they can break. Because they say, listen, my father breaks the law. My father does things that the state says he can't do. You're teaching your children that breaking the law is okay, and that's the wrong thing. And then you can't come to court and say to me or to any judge, he has to be able to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that it was my fireworks that damaged his car. No, he doesn't. He just has to be able to prove that you, against the law, were shooting off fireworks in the proximity of his car that could have damaged his car, at least in my world. The issue is not really whether you are responsible if there was damage to this car. You're responsible. The issue is, was there any damage? That's what you say. There was no damage. So, now, we've established one thing. Now you can show me the damage.
Yes, ma'am, I have some digital pictures taken of the vehicle.
You have an estimate to fix it?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I have pictures of the same vehicle and the same area that show no damage, and they were taken 3 days ago.
Let me see. I see both.
I also took several shots of other parts of the car to show that weren't any damage did either. Because I believe the estimate that he had stated that front fenders, hood, several parts
Oh,
were
I see the damage, sir. I don't know where your eyes are. I see it. It's just that your pictures are farther away than his are. His are close by. I see the damage, the exact same place where it shows here, right above this little thing. I see it. You should look a little bit closer or get your eyes checked.
Okay.
Anything else anybody wants to say to me?
I have an estimate that states what he was claiming. His estimate claims as far as clear coat on the damage of a car can't be damaged by fireworks unless they're shot completely, right on the paint. Something that hit it or landed on it said it can't be damaged. I don't know. That's just a statement that a body shop says.
You have a witness here for me to read?
No, ma'am.
You don't have?
No. Yes, we do have a witness.
You have a witness?
I have a witness to state what we did, but not as far as
I know
the
what
body
you
shop.
did. You told me what you did. You illegally purchased fireworks and you illegally shot them off. What do I need a witness? Is that what they did?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Your witness corroborates that. Judgment for the plaintiff, the amount of $923. Thank you very much.
Yes, this is case number 244 on the calendar in the matter of Perriman versus Brewington. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Ms. Perryman, your complaint is rather lengthy, as is your former husband's answer. So let me see if I can simplify what I perceive to be the issue in this case. You and the defendant were married and have 2 children?
3.
3 children. And you live where?
In Colorado.
And Mr. Brewington moved to Alaska.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had an agreement with him that you would split the cost of visitation with the children to Alaska. And Mr. Brewington, did you come down and pick up the children?
Yes, I did.
And it was your arrangement with your former wife that she would pay for the other half of the ticket before you did that.
Yes.
But then at some point, according to you, you changed your mind.
Yes.
Because she said to you, I don't have the money to pay for the ticket. If you want to see the children, you have to pay for the ticket. I have no money for that.
Yes.
Right?
I paid for the whole ticket.
So you said to her, fine, I want to see the kids. I want the children to visit with me in Alaska, so I will pay for the ticket both ways. But at some point during the course of the visitation, you changed your mind. And you called her and said, if you want the kids back, you better get a ticket.
First, he said, if I want the kids back, I have to come and get them myself.
And you said to him?
I told him he was going to bring my kids back, or I was calling the police.
And he said?
Call him.
Does that sound right?
No.
Close.
Close, but not right.
Close. Because she had changed the rules by saying, I can't afford to send the kids and pay for half the ticket. You said, okay, I'll take care of it. And at some point, then you changed your mind and wanted her to pay what she had agreed to pay in the beginning, right?
I didn't ask her to pay for half the tickets. I just asked her to either come up and get the children or to get me a ticket back the day I flew to Denver with them.
Well, listen, let's not split hairs, sir. If she wanted the children back and she has custody of the children, then you told her to either come get them yourself, which means that she'd have to pay for her ticket back and forth, right? Yes. Or pay for my ticket, right?
Yes.
Because the kids are too small to travel by themselves.
Yes.
So far correct? And Miss Perryman says that the reason she didn't have any money is because you don't pay child support.
That's incorrect.
How much does he pay in child support?
Supposed to pay $488 a month. It's hit and miss each month.
Just a second. $488 per month, 3 children. Okay. What kind of work do you do in Alaska, sir?
I don't work. I'm a full-time student.
Well, if you're a full-time student, how do you pay this $488 a month?
I don't. I'm working with the state of Alaska now. As previous, I was working with Colorado to get it lowered.
Well, how old are you, Mr. Brewington?
I'm 28.
What makes you think you can be a full-time student after you fathered 3 children?
I'm a disabled vet going to school through Chapter 31 Voc Rehab.
I don't care if you're a Purple Heart winner. What makes you think that somebody who looks like you, who's built like you, who eats like you do, can stop working and go to school full-time when you've got 3 children to support? What gives you the right to do that?
I did it. That's what I need to do to get a better career so I can support my children better.
Well, that's all very, very nice. You expect them to go into a state of suspended animation while you get your act together?
No, but I didn't expect Mrs. Perryman over there to quit her job and to be in school as well.
Somebody is feeding your children. Who is it?
The state.
How old are your children?
3, 6, and 8.
What was so interesting about Alaska that caused you to move from Colorado to Alaska?
I was born and raised in Alaska.
And where did you live when you were married to Miss Perryman?
We lived all over. Oklahoma, Alaska, California, and then Colorado.
And how long did you live in Colorado?
About 3.5 years.
So Colorado was the home state of your family?
I guess.
Didn't it strike you, Mr. Brewington, that if you moved to Alaska, even though it's a place that you grew up, it would be difficult for you to have regular contact and visitation with your children?
Yes, I understood that.
And you were willing to make that sacrifice?
Yes, I was.
And you were willing to make that sacrifice on behalf of your children as well?
I call my children almost every day.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
How much was the plane ticket?
$159. Plus, we had to drive 4 hours away to go pick up the kids in Denver, which was gas, and we spent one night in the hotel the night before because the plane arrived a little bit before 7 in the morning.
You've got a lot of little expenses here, including, according to you, mental anguish. I can't give you mental anguish. Listen, he didn't turn into this overnight.
No, he didn't, but
okay? And you were not smart enough not to have the 2nd child with him and the 3rd child with him. Should have, figured it out right away. Any man that has 3 children that can move thousands of miles away from their 3 young children because he wants to pursue a career in education is not somebody that I would father 3 children with.
He was a responsible father up until November of 2001, and
And then what happened?
He told me that he didn't feel the same way, and everything went downhill from there.
I don't care if he doesn't feel the same way about you. He's got 3 children.
Well, it turned his look on everything, I guess.
Well, when was the last time you received $488 from him?
The full amount of $488 would be July of 2003. He paid a little bit over to catch up because for the previous 3 months there was no payment at all.
When was the last time you received any money from him?
June of this year. It was $50.
Okay. Where do your parents live?
In Alaska.
You live with them?
Yes, I live with my mother.
Mr. Brewington, I don't think you're doing the right thing, sir. I think you ought to do a lot of soul searching.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today...
Are you calling each other bad names?
Yes.
So Mr. Ewan came out?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said, "You ugly MFers need to stop making all this noise before I go get my shotgun."
Did you have a shotgun?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Christy Perryman says ex-husband Jason Brewington owes for the cost of a plane ticket. Jason says Christy owes him for the cost to visit his children.
Now, do you have a legal agreement that provides that you pay for half of the cost of the children to go to visit him?
In September of 2002, I agreed to do that on document and with the court. In August, the beginning of August, I have it stated that the magistrate ruled that I am released from all financial obligation of visitation.
Right.
And I have that paperwork.
Right. He wants to see his children? Let him get a job and make enough money to get a ticket to come and pick them up. And if he wants to take them to Alaska to see his parents, which would be a nice thing, fine. Other than that, I think that you're absolutely nuts to do it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $159. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think it was fair.
I think I was robbed.
She knows that I'm not responsible to pay for the plane tickets.
She was required to pay for half the plane ticket. She never did.
He doesn't think I deserve any money from him.
She just wants money.
He needs to have a better relationship with his kids, all 3 of them.
Every opportunity I have, I spend time with them.
They are the victims.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Yuan versus Todd Lamb. Step forward, please.
Mechanic Stanley Ewan is suing his neighbors, Vanessa Lamb, her son, 11-year-old Javante Peck, Victoria Todd, and her son, 11-year-old Devon Todd, for throwing eggs at his apartment. The kids say Stanley threatened them with a shotgun.
Mr. Ewan, it is your claim that these boys egged your apartment.
Yes, they did.
Caused some damage, and you want to be compensated for the damage.
Yes, I do.
And their mothers say that you just don't like children, especially their children, and that you threatened the boys with a shotgun, and that there wasn't any damage to your apartment. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Ewan, you live in an apartment complex?
Yes.
Do these boys and their families live in the same complex?
No.
Okay. Now, when did this incident happen with the eggs?
June 28th, about 9:30 in the morning.
Tell me what happened at 9:30 in the morning, Mr. Ewan.
Well, at 9:30 in the morning, I had a friend over. We're watching a ball game. Heard a commotion on the other side of our fence, and there was about 8 kids fighting and harassing, saying bad names and stuff. I went
saying
out.
Bad names to whom, sir?
Well, each other. You know,
so they were calling each other names and
fighting, pushing, shoving.
Now, was this in your complex or was this in their complex?
It was in their complex.
Okay.
I went outside and told them to break it up and go home, and they did so.
Did you have a shotgun?
No.
Did you say anything else to them?
Not at that time. I went back in. About 10 minutes later, 4 of them came back and threw the eggs.
Where were they when they threw the eggs, sir?
On their side of the property, on the other side of the hedge.
Did you see these 2 boys?
Yes, I did.
Did they throw eggs?
Yes, they did. Got pictures, and I got
I'd like to see the photographs, please. Was your door open, sir?
My sliding door was open, my screen door.
So the eggs got on your carpet?
Got on the carpet, got on the couch, on the front of the couch there.
Okay.
And it also got on the paint.
Do you own this house?
No.
You're a renter?
I rent.
Who paid for the outside cleaning?
I hasn't been cleaned yet. That's just an estimate.
It has not been, but you don't own the outside?
No.
Okay. Why didn't somebody just go out there and hose it off?
I tried to hose it off.
Well, it doesn't look like anybody tried to hose it off, sir, because it's still dripping.
After the pictures, I did try to hose it off.
And what happened?
The egg, it was so hot out that day that the egg dried onto it, and when I tried cleaning it off, it stripped the paint off.
Okay. How old are you?
11.
What's your name?
Javante.
And how old are you?
11.
Your name?
Devon.
Remember the day that Mr. Ewan is talking about?
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
All right. We were right over by the fence, and Javante and another kid was fighting.
What were they fighting about?
I can't remember, but they were like arguing. They weren't putting their
What were
hands
you
on.
arguing about, Javante?
We were arguing about who can knock who out and this and that.
So you were talking, I mean, that's not smart. Why were you angry at these other people?
Yeah.
And were they angry at you?
Yep.
And were you calling each other bad names?
Yes.
So Mr. Ewan came out?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said, "You ugly MFers need to stop making all this noise before I go get my shotgun."
So what did you do?
So then all of us boys went over to our houses and got eggs and went over there and threw eggs at his house.
Why did you throw eggs at his house?
Because what he was being racial.
He was being racial?
Yeah.
So that's the way you resolved it. You went over, got some eggs, and you decided to vandalize his house.
Yep.
What'd you do?
I got an egg, and when they started throwing the eggs, he came out. I dropped my egg and ran.
So now I'd like to hear from the mothers. Who wants to speak first? Go ahead.
Okay. As I was getting out my shower, I had about 3 kids run up in my house yelling and screaming where this man put a shotgun on them.
Well, but now you know that wasn't true. That was a lie.
I wasn't there.
Just a second. But now you know that was a lie.
No, I
Mr.
don't
Ewan,
know that.
Sure you do, because Mr. Ewan says it wasn't true, and your boy says it's not true. He says Mr. Ewan didn't pull a shotgun on him. Mr. Ewan told him to get out, or he was going to get a shotgun. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah.
So he didn't pull a shotgun on him. He threatened him. Got it?
I still, like I said, I wasn't there, so I do not know.
Well,
I've had
want you
other kids.
pay
The other kids
attention.
said.
Speaking. Pay attention to what I'm saying. Your son says, you don't think your son is a liar, do you?
He will.
Well, you don't think that he would lie to make it appear that Mr. Ewan was a nice guy, right?
No.
If anything, he would lie and say he was a terrible guy, right?
And he has.
Just a second. Just a second. So when he says to you, and to me, that Mr. Ewan didn't take a gun, Mr. Ewan said to him, you don't get out of here, I'm going to get a shotgun. You think that that's the truth? You think that Mr. Ewan brought out a shotgun? That's what you think? Is that what you think?
I didn't find out till a couple days later, and my son said that no one pulled a shotgun. He said that
nobody pulled a shotgun, right? You saw a shotgun?
I saw the end of it.
You're full of baloney. You're full of baloney.
Don't even have a gun.
You said there was in the pawn shop.
Oh, yeah,
Listen,
I had a pawn shop.
Listen to me very carefully. Your son says that he never pulled a shotgun, that he threatened him. So they came back, you were in the shower, you heard what you thought you heard, and what did you do?
Got all the other kids' moms, went over to the managers, addressed the issue for us and pulling the gun, called the police. The police came out, and then they talked to him, and then they talked to us, and the other, it's another guy that's involved in this as well. Anyway, to make a long story short, he was concerned as far as they can't search my house because they don't have a search warrant.
Listen to me, don't worry about Mr. Ewan.
I'm just saying
Don't worry about Mr. Ewan. So your son came to you complaining, if you listened carefully with both ears.
He wasn't the only one.
I'm speaking. Your son came to you, and if you were listening carefully, he said that he was going to get a shotgun, because you say he wouldn't lie about it. And he says he never pulled out a shotgun. He said he threatened he would get it. Isn't that what you just said to me?
Yeah.
Right.
That's.
Shop speaking. Try to put your listening ears on. Didn't you ever say that to your son? Put on your listening ears. But while you were getting the other mothers together, the boys went and got eggs and went back to his house and egged his house. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that was right?
No.
So what did you do about it? That's not a hard question. Your son went and vandalized somebody's house. What did you do about it?
He was disciplined.
Tell me how.
No sweets, cookies, pop, restriction, not...
Oh, come on. I don't believe a word of that.
Well, I mean, that's my form of discipline.
I don't believe that you disciplined him. Javante, let me tell you this. When you fight with people, that's bad. So if you were fighting with people that day, and who was going to knock who out, that doesn't mean you're too intelligent. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because that's not the way you start playing 9 o'clock in the morning. I assume school was over, so that you had nothing to do. When you have nothing to do, what you're supposed to do is not fight. Find something to occupy your time. Maybe your mother will take you to the planetarium. 9:30 in the morning, she was just taking a shower. She should get up a little earlier in the morning if she has young children to make sure that they are adequately supervised. Now, when you do something wrong, you're supposed to acknowledge that you did something wrong. It's not my job to tell this man who's how old?
50.
50? How to conduct himself? And if this man who's 50 says something untoward to your children, their response is not to go over and vandalize his property. That's not the proper response. He's too old for me to deal with. They're not. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. If somebody is stupid and says something to you that you don't like, your response is not to hurt them. Right?
Yes.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $457, which is the amount that I have here in bills. Goodbye.
Yes, case number 246 on the calendar in the matter of Potters versus Wells. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Ms. Potter, the defendant is your former husband.
Yes, ma'am.
And your claim is for two things. First, you claim that he filed a report to Child Protective Services,
yes, ma'am,
causing you some stress.
Yes, ma'am.
The second has to do with an income tax bill that emanated from the time that you and the defendant were married, that you're paying.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Wells says that he was concerned about his daughter. You have a daughter together.
Yes, we do.
And he doesn't deny that he called Child Protective Services.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And that he pays child support, so the tax bill is yours.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
So let's deal with those two things. Ms. Potter, when were you married and when were you divorced?
We were married May of 1996, separated in December of 99, legally divorced January of 2001.
And when was your daughter born?
She was born August 19th, 1997.
And you have visitation with your daughter?
Yes, ma'am, on the weekends.
And you pay child support?
Yes, I do, diligently.
Now, Mr. Wells, when did you call in a report to Child Protective Services and why, sir?
It was about a month ago. I noticed a change in my child's demeanor, calling me during the night, crying, saying that she did not want to be there anymore, that it was a bad place to live, they were being mean to her, which I've heard before. Taking that she's 7, probably some discipline going on over there, so you try to take that in, you know, to occurrence. But after a week of this, and even in the mornings, I heard her and her mother arguing, and the child terribly upset before she went to school. So then that following weekend, she tells me that this gentleman over here had beat her with a belt. That,
who is this?
This is my boyfriend.
All right. Which really concerned me. Did flip on that one, that he had took some pictures of her in her room. So I called Child Services, and I spoke with the lady, and I haven't caused them any grief in the time they've been together, haven't, you know, interfered in their lives. And so after explaining this to the Child Services, they felt like that I should file a complaint with them. You know, and that, needless to say, leaving the child alone at the bus stop, getting off at the bus, wandering around the neighborhood for a half an hour unsupervised, sitting on the front porch waiting in the afternoon for 15 to 20 minutes at a time without no supervision. All of these concerns came out in that.
Okay. But primarily you called because of the photographs that your daughter told you were taken
Absolutely.
of her and the fact that she said that this gentleman disciplined her with a belt.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay. What's your name?
It's Rob Brialt, ma'am.
Step. Last name?
Brialt.
How long have you and Miss Potter been together, Mr. Brialt?
About 1.5 years now.
And you live together?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have children?
Yes, I do. 3 of them.
And where do they live?
They live with their mom in Colorado.
And where do you and Miss Potter live?
In Cary, North Carolina.
Did you ever discipline Miss Potter's daughter?
Just once, ma'am.
And tell me about that incident.
My children were visiting me for approximately about 5 weeks, and all the girls were up in one room sleeping, or supposedly sleeping, and they're right above the TV room, you know, where we're watching TV, and you can hear them talk and all that, and yell up there a couple times, you know, go to sleep, girls, it's getting late, go to sleep. Since the 2 of mine were obviously up there, and they're acting up, I went up there with the belt, and, you know, spanked them, slapped, you know, gave them a hit on the rear end, you know, to the 2 of my girls, and it would be only fair to the other 2 to not play favorites with Tatum. So she got it as well. And then they all quieted down and they all went to sleep.
Might I add, she did, it was a swat. She didn't even cry. It wasn't a spanking.
Miss Potter.
Okay, sorry.
That's really not an issue that's before me. Okay. What's before me is your claim that he called Child Protective Services without a basis. So that's what I'm trying to get to.
Okay.
Then there's an issue of photographing your daughter. Mm-hmm. Now tell me about that. Have you photographed your daughter in her room?
What led up to that? Tatum was supposed to be upstairs cleaning her room. I yelled up, Tatum, are you cleaning your room? Yes, Mommy. So Rob's like, well, we'll see. He took this phone, a camera phone, you know, most of them have it. He peeked around the stairs, snapped her sitting on the floor playing when she's supposed to be cleaning her room, came downstairs, downloaded on the computer, showed me, Tatum, come down here right now. She came down. I'm going to remember, Mommy always says she has eyes in the back of her head. I can see everything you're doing. What's this? She looks at it. I'm like, you weren't cleaning your room. She's like I'm busted. You know?
Nothing terribly wrong with taking a picture and saying, listen, a picture, this speaks 1,000 words, you weren't cleaning your room. But as it's relayed to her father, that doesn't sound good. Do you understand?
You're absolutely right. Tatum came home one weekend from his house, said, Dad's going to call Child Services or something on you. I'm like, what? And she's all, yeah, and she told me why. So I get on the phone, I'm like, what are you going to do? Tatum's telling me you're going to do this. And he's like, yeah, I have a concern, my daughter. I'm like, that's a very good concern. This is what happened.
Ms. Potter, let me dispose of the first part of your claim. And I want you also
Yes, ma'am.
to listen carefully, Mr. Wells. Is this your only child?
Yes, ma'am, it is. Or, I beg your pardon, I do have an older son in California.
How old?
13 years old.
Little girls sometimes are manipulative.
Absolutely.
And let me dispose of Mr. Briault first so that he can sit down. Never discipline her child with an implement. Shouldn't discipline her child anything other than with words anyway. But you have no right to discipline her child with a belt. Period. End of discussion. You're not even her stepfather. You have no relationship to this child at all. And the fact that you wanted to be fair because you were disciplining your children, and so you wanted to be fair and your children shouldn't be angry with you, so you disciplined her child, that's ridiculous. Because there are other ways of telling the 3 little girls who were upstairs playing to be quiet because they were interfering with your television time, other than taking a belt and going upstairs and hitting them. We understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Sit down. He hasn't assumed the legal responsibility in any way to your daughter. Even when he does, I wouldn't let him discipline my daughter corporally, but certainly not as long as he's just your boyfriend. What kind of commitment is that?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You are a deadbeat with regard to either this child or your son.
I wouldn't call it a deadbeat.
Deadbeat doesn't pay child support as directed. That's a deadbeat.
And later today,
she came up and told me that she was pregnant, and I told her that how could you be pregnant when, we've been using, protection.
Who was using the protection?
I was.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Angela Potter says ex-husband Michael Wells maliciously filed false charges with Child Protective Services. Angela also says Michael owes for back taxes.
So when his daughter complained to him that she was hit with a belt, that was true. And as a non-custodial parent, because he has visitation, and he's concerned that A, some stranger in the house is hitting my child with a belt, and the mother isn't doing anything about it, and the same stranger is taking pictures of her in her bedroom, because that's the way it's presented.
Right.
He has a legitimate complaint. And I do not find that he maliciously called Child Protective Services, because you've been separated since 1999. This is 5 years later. Is this the first time he's called Child Protective Services?
Yes, ma'am.
And he had a reason to do it.
But...
And I don't care whether you explained it to him or not. You can't explain to him satisfactorily that this man took a belt to your daughter. There's no satisfactory explanation for that.
Okay.
Now let's get to number 2. Let's get to the tax returns. Can I see the tax bill that you got with regard to the taxes owed?
Well, here's the whole statement from 1998.
It's just a retaliation suit, ma'am, is all. She threatened, as soon as Child Protection Services was contacted her, she called up.
Mr. Wells.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen to me very carefully, my friend.
Yes, ma'am.
Was the first part of my judgment fair to you?
Yes, ma'am.
So you think I'm a fair lady?
Yes, I do.
I don't care whether it's in retaliation or not. If she's been paying off your debt, I'm going to find out why.
Okay.
Well, this says, sir, at the time when you were still married and still together, there was a deficiency in your tax returns of almost $9,000. How much of it did you pay?
I haven't paid any of it.
Why?
Because all my tax returns goes to child support. Is mandated by the state. They take my tax returns and apply it towards state arrears in child support.
Just a second. So what you're telling me is that they take your tax refunds because you were a deadbeat father with regard to your child support, either for this child or another child.
During the arbitration of the separation, yes. I did go a period of time because Ms. Potter had...
You are a deadbeat with regard to either this child or your son.
I wouldn't call it a deadbeat.
Deadbeat doesn't pay child support as directed. That's a deadbeat.
Well, it wasn't paid until mandated by the court, ma'am, and then it has been paid every month since then for the last 5 years.
Well, arrears suggest, Mr. Wells, that the state has determined that you owed money for one child or two.
For 2 children, I paid.
For both children. So I'm going to ask you the next question, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't you start to pay her and say, listen, we have $9,000 that we owed. Clearly, half of that is mine because we were married and filed jointly. So what you're telling me is you decided that she's got to get stuck with this tax bill. Is that what you're telling me?
No, ma'am. I just thought that $9,000 was strong for one tax we filed together 1 year.
So?
And she hasn't, you know, applied me with any documentation, has a contact.
Here, just a second. Here you go. I want him to have the documentation.
Absolutely.
Take a look.
$8,881.
That's what it says.
All right.
So, since you filed those taxes, since you were living together, were you working at that time, Mr. Wells?
Yes, ma'am. As a subcontractor at that point.
Very good. And what were you doing?
I was an executive assistant for a recruiting firm.
Okay. And so far you've paid about $7,100.
Yes, these
and
are...
there's, right, I see it. And there's still $2,030 owed.
Penalties and interest, pretty much.
Mr. Wells, the defense that you have to this, as I indicated before, because I've read it, your defense is, as far as our taxes, my wife filed our taxes and they are in her name. That's what you swore to. Internal Revenue Service says that you filed married filing jointly.
Absolutely.
So that is incorrect.
Yes, ma'am, it was. But that was the first time I'd seen that piece of paper right there.
Good. Well, I'm glad that you saw the piece of paper, Mr.
Yes,
Wells, because you owe her $4,500. That's half the tax bill and penalties. Judgment for the plaintiff. That's all.
Thank you.
All right, you are excused. You may step out.
Miss Potter tries to get every little bit of money out of me she can. She always has.
All he had to do is pay out the tax. He didn't want to do that, so look what it cost him in the end.
As far as me and Miss Potter, we will not have any kind of relationship whatsoever.
You just can't reason with him.
Just as long as the well-being of my daughter's taken care of.
I do the best I can as a single mom.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Stevens versus Stokes, step forward, please.
Bus driver Joseph Stevens is suing his ex-girlfriend, 25-year-old service representative Ginger Stokes, for the return of child support.
According to your complaint, you and Miss Stokes had a relationship. I don't know what kind of relationship, and Miss Stokes became pregnant. She took you to court for child support because at that time you were no longer in a relationship. You began paying child support for this child, a boy or a girl?
Boy.
And then you discovered that the child was not yours.
Yes, ma'am.
Biologically. So you want the support payments back that you gave to the defendant.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens, when were you and Miss Stokes in a relationship?
Around December 2000.
Until when?
About April, June, between 2002.
2002 or 2001?
2001, I mean, I'm sorry.
During that time, did you live together?
Well, at that time, she was having problems at her house. So she asked, can she come stay with me? And she came and stayed with me for a little while.
What's a little while?
It was no more than like 2-3 months.
Okay. When did she tell you she was pregnant?
She told me she was pregnant around about April.
What did she tell you?
She came up and told me that she was pregnant, and I told her that, you know, how could you be pregnant when, you know, we've been using, you know, protection. And then...
Who was using the protection?
I was.
Did you see her during her pregnancy?
No.
Did she call you when the baby was born?
Yeah, she had called my mother's house. She had called me at the time that she was in the hospital and kept telling my mom for me to come up there to see the baby.
Did you go up to see the baby?
No, ma'am.
Why not, Mr. Stevens?
Because I felt as though that the baby, you know, wasn't mine. And I just didn't want to go up there.
Did there come a time when you went to see the baby?
No.
Did there come a time that you were notified that they were taking some money from your paycheck?
No, the only time I found out is whenever I got a letter from her going down to the courthouse.
When did you go down to seek child support?
The beginning of 2003.
How old was the baby?
He was 6-7 months.
Is there any reason you waited to seek child support until the baby was 6 or 7 months old?
Yes. He at one point did come and we were talking on the phone and said that he would like us to be together, that he wanted us, the three of us, to be together, that he felt that that was his child. At the time I had finally met somebody else and I didn't want to be with him. And after that, he wasn't coming around, he wasn't doing anything. I needed to go for child support.
Now, Ms. Stokes, how much money did you receive from Mr. Stevens after the court fixed a child support order?
A little over $800.
Is that right, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Mr. Stevens, I'd like you to tell me how ultimately this mystery was unraveled and you determined that this child was not yours.
Well, the job that me and her used to work at, there was people there telling me that, you know, she was up there saying that the baby wasn't mine.
So you heard from sources that this child might not be yours, but you already knew that, Mr. Stevens.
Yes, I even
mean,
seen
you
the baby.
already knew, based upon your use of protection, that there was at least a possibility that this child wasn't yours, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, there was already a child support order in place, Mr. Stevens, is that right?
Yes.
Now, as an old family court practitioner, I know that you were served with a notice to appear in the family court on the issue of paternity, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you didn't go, right?
Yes.
Why not?
Well, I was at the time, I was having a problem with my other 3 kids. And by that time, I was practically like scared to go to the court.
You were scared to go to the court because?
I figured that I might have had like a, you know, warrant or something like that.
Because you weren't paying child support.
Yes, at that time, because I wasn't working that much.
I'm glad you added that much. If you're going to make all these babies, Mr. Stevens, then you better get a lot of jobs.
Yes, ma'am.
Not work part-time. If you work part-time, you got all this energy. So you decided to blow off court, and they issued a default judgment against you, declared you to be the father. If you had gone to court immediately and said, listen, I want a blood test, they would have taken a blood test and they would have said, you're off the hook on this one.
But at that time, when I wanted to get a paternity test, I even talked to her about it. She kept telling me that they's not going to be able to do it, and you might have to pay for it out of your pocket.
Better off paying for it out of your pocket, sir, a couple of $100 than pay for the 21 years, right?
Yes.
You can't be short-sighted. You don't have any children together?
No.
Do you have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children do you have?
3.
So between you have 6 children?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that enough?
Oh.
Plenty.
Plenty, right? Plenty. 6 children. Now you're working full-time?
Yes.
Good. What kind of work do you do?
School bus driver.
Well, you must like children. Okay. How much did they take out of your pay, Mr. Stevens?
$842 altogether.
$842?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Miss Stokes, did we finally come up with a daddy for your baby?
Yes.
Is there a paternity proceeding pending, or has one been
No.
finalized?
No.
Why not?
So I have no idea where he is, and I don't want to pursue it because he's my son and he's my world, and I'm going to take care of him regardless.
Okay. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $842. Thank you.
Case number 220 on the calendar, the matter of Ashcroft versus Skiles. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Gentlemen, have a seat, please.
Mr. Ashcroft, you and the defendant were engaged and living together. She moved out with 3 months left to go on a lease that I assume the two of you had signed together.
That is correct.
You want her to pay those 3 months' rent. The defendant says that your behavior forced her out of the apartment, and she is counterclaiming for damage that she says that you did to her truck, a whole bunch of money because she says you've been harassing her, and something about a dog. So let's start with when you moved in together and when you signed the lease.
Okay, like you said, we were engaged. We decided to both move in on a house.
Listen to me.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a quick learn. I asked a question. When did you sign the lease? That requires a date,
Yes,
not a
ma'am.
story.
We signed it in September of 2003, September 28th.
And when did you move in?
We moved in October 1st, I believe. Just a few
You have
days.
a copy of the lease?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I'd like to see it, please. And what was your agreement with regard to paying for the expenses on this apartment?
We had came to a mutual agreement that we would both pay half.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How many people were supposed to live there?
2, me and Julie were the only ones that were living in the house at the time we first
And your dog?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Monthly rent was $900.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you moved out when?
About June 15th.
Is that about right?
It sounds about right. I have the 25th. It was wasn't very clear because she did not tell me when she was moving out. She had no intention. I did not have any information of her intention of moving out.
Sir. When did you wake up and find she wasn't there? What date?
Actually, I believe it was the 25th on a Friday when I came home for work and discovered that everything out of the house was gone.
Are you telling me that between the 15th and the 25th she was living there?
She...
is not an answer.
No, ma'am, I don't believe she was. She would come home when I was at work and get her things. And
I want to know when she moved out. The 15th or the 25th. Physically, her body, her person, not her property, her person. When did she move out?
I would say the 25th, Your Honor.
Who are you?
I'm his brother.
You have a name?
Jason Ashcroft, ma'am.
When did you move into the apartment?
I moved in around March, end of March, April.
So you were living in the apartment when they were living there, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how much rent were you paying?
I was paying $350 a month.
You still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Then what are we doing here? See, it's nice to have a nice, honest brother, right?
Yes, ma'am.
She moved out June 15th. She moved out June 25th. What difference does it make? Your brother's living there. He's taking over the other part of the rent. So why are you suing her?
Well, because of the fact that there was no 30-day notice given. She was unemployed for 9 months, which meant that I needed to move in someone to help cover her part of the rent.
He moved in before, according to your brother. Is your brother lying? Your brother moved in, it says, in March. She moved out in June. March, April, May, June. That is right, isn't it?
I just needed someone to help cover the rent. I didn't want to be in default on my lease, so I had to move my brother in and help.
Good. And you did that. That's a good thing. So you're not out any money. So I don't know why you're bothering me, Mr. Ashcroft. You want to get to your counterclaim?
Yes, ma'am. Actually,
you gave the right answer, truthful answer. See how fast we resolve this?
Yes,
Plus, your
ma'am.
brother probably will want to take you outside and kill you. That's not my problem. Let's deal with your counterclaim.
Okay.
Let's deal with your counterclaim, unless you want to say, listen, I don't want to get involved with this lady. I don't want to deal with her.
Oh, no.
Okay.
On June 15th, the day I moved out, he came home and rammed my car out the driveway with his truck.
Why did he do that?
Why did he do that?
Yeah.
You'll have to ask him.
No.
He wanted me to move my car, and I apparently didn't do it fast enough.
Listen to me. I want you to understand something. I'm not your friend. You have a whole host of friends. Are you related to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you her father?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Your father is your friend. You have friends. I'm not your friend. So when I say to you, why did he ram your car with his truck, there was a reason. The reason was he wanted you to move your car, and you weren't moving it fast enough.
Correct.
And you were having an argument with him.
Correct.
All right, there you go. You see? You've been around the block a few times, and you understand things, so that he didn't just wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to ram her car with my truck.
We were arguing. He had asked me at that time, told me that I needed to leave to move out of the house. Then he went to leave, and my car was parked behind him.
How many times did he ask you to move your car?
One time, and then he went to his truck. I was getting my keys, heard his truck back out into my car, and he moved it himself.
Now, what happened with her car, sir?
I asked her repeatedly to move her car.
And what did she say to you?
She didn't say anything. There was no communication there whatsoever.
So she just ignored you?
Yes, ma'am. She ignored
and
me.
just take your hand out of your pocket?
Yes, ma'am.
So, you asked her, you said, move your car, things are getting too hot.
Yes, ma'am. And
she was giving you the old passive-aggressive. She wasn't moving, she wasn't getting the keys, she wasn't getting this, So, you got into your car, and what did you do? Your truck?
She was parked a few feet behind my truck. As I was trying to get out, I tried to maneuver my truck to get out, and I accidentally hit her car.
Okay, so you understand that you have to fix that.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an estimate?
Yes.
What's the estimate?
I have two, both for $700, one 702, one 703.
Okay, $700. When you have a bad temper, that's what happens. What else?
Also, I would like to add his harassment. Also on that day when he came home, he kicked in the bathroom door, pushed me against the wall, told me to leave. He calls my work, continuously harassing me.
What is he asking you for at work?
For money and for
money. Well, he's not going to stop.
And stolen property, Your Honor.
For a frying pan.
Listen to me. Listen to me.
A frying pan and a
Take your hands out of your pockets. This claim that you filed here has nothing to do with property. It had to do with rent. Now you're not going to call her anymore for money.
Excuse me, ma'am?
You're not going to call her anymore for money. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
You've litigated it, and you lost. We're just dealing now with her counterclaim. So don't bother her anymore. And your brother is going to tell you that he thinks that's a real good idea, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I purchased the dog. You can keep it, that's fine, but I would like my money or the dog.
Do you have the receipt for that?
Don't take your hands out of your pocket.
And later today,
The dog just came straight out into the road. My fiance Christina was just like, oh my God, we just hit a dog. And then we found it just laying on its side.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Josh Ashcroft says ex-fiancée Julie Skiles broke their apartment lease. Julie says Josh's behavior forced her out of the home.
Now, he's not going to harass you anymore. Now, you want to tell me this story about the dog that you didn't get. What kind of a dog is it?
It's a boxer. And when we first split up, I was going to get the dog. He was going to give it to me. But then after the arguing and all that, he decided that he was going to keep the dog. I purchased the dog. He can keep it, that's fine. But I would like my money or the dog.
Do you have the receipt for that?
Don't take your hands out of your pocket. How long have you had the dog?
July of 2003, a little over a year.
And where are you living now?
I live in an apartment now.
And where do you live?
I live in the same residence, a three-bedroom house.
And the dog has a yard?
Yes, ma'am.
So you would say that the dog is better off with him?
Yes, ma'am.
That's why you left the dog?
So, correct.
What do you want?
I want him to pay me the cash I paid for the dog.
You can't get that.
Okay. And I can't get the dog either.
Of course not.
No, the dog is happy where the dog is.
It's in the dog's well-being, I agree.
Take your hand out of your
Yeah, it's a
pockets and don't
dog's world
speak
over
until
there.
you're spoken to, Mr. Ashcroft. So far, you don't get any money for him harassing you. He's not going to bother you anymore. You made him pretty mad if he hit your car with his truck. I don't know what the argument was about, nor do I care, quite frankly. I got enough to worry about my own arguments. He owes you $700 for the damage he did to your truck, because he did that because he was angry. And when you have a bad temper, you have to pay for that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. So your counterclaim in the amount of $4,150 for harassment, the dog, and the kitchen sink is resolved this way. He pays you $700 to get your car fixed. And you, instead of having this lovely damsel as a roommate, have your brother. Good luck to you both.
Yes, ma'am.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She was contractually obligated to pay the rent, the 12-month lease agreement that we both signed.
I don't owe him for rent. His brother is paying the rent.
The judge made a correct decision in leaving the dog where he belongs, and that's in the backyard of the house, not cramped up in some one-bedroom apartment.
I do think it's better for the dog.
I'm just glad it's all over with.
No more relationships for me.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Kurtz versus Mansfield. Step forward, please.
Engineer Andrew Kurtz is suing teacher Carolyn Mansfield for car repair bills. Andrew says Carolyn's unleashed dog ran into his Porsche.
Mr. Kurtz, you were driving along a country road, and according to your complaint, the defendant's dog was running out and hit your car. And you want Miss Mansfield to be responsible for the $1,000 deductible that you had to pay after your insurance covered the rest of the damage to the car.
That's correct.
Miss Mansfield says that you had to have been going too fast on that road, that your car hit her dog, and that she paid over $1,200 in vet bills for the dog. And since you were probably each at fault, since the dog was out, which is how the dog came to collide with your car in the first place, she's taking care of her bills, and you should take care of yours, right?
That's absolutely right.
Well, that's your position anyway.
Yes, well, that is my position.
Where do you live?
I live in Placerville, California.
Are there any rules and regulations where you live with regard to dogs being leashed or being confined in either a yard or your home?
I understand there is a leash law. There's supposed to be.
So your dog, I assume, does not comply with the leash law.
My dog complies whenever she can. However, there are some holes in my neighbor's fence, and occasionally the dog has gotten into the neighbor's yard. On the day in question, I did not know the dog was out of our yard. In fact, my husband and I were getting ready to go to a Christmas party. It's December 21st, about 4 o'clock, and I turned to my son and I said, "We're getting ready to go to the party now. See you later." And Charlie said, "Well, I'm going out to the backyard to play with the dogs." And I turned around, I saw one of our...
How many dogs do you have?
Two. And I saw
what kind of dogs are...
Pardon?
What kind of dogs are they?
They're mutts. They were both strays that eventually showed up, and we just didn't quite get them to the pound, and now they're ours.
And how long have you had them?
7 years.
And how often does this particular dog get out of your yard?
Well, anymore, not at all, but
Then,
at that time, pretty often.
okay. So you were on notice that your dog knew how to get out.
But my dog, this is the truth, Judge Judy, my dog is extremely streetwise. I know that sounds crazy, but this dog had grown up, had about 2 years in this area. It was a wild dog. We had seen it around, and I decided to try to tame the dog so that I could catch it. Animal control would not pick it up unless we could contain it. So over a period of about 6 months, I was able to tame the dog, and by then I just kind of fell in love with her. She has absolutely become a part of our family, and this dog never ran into the road or in front of a car. The dog would literally go to a driveway and look both ways before it crossed. People would note that. It's incredibly smart, or it couldn't have survived the 2 years in this neighborhood where people would come up from the Bay Area in their fancy sport cars driving really fast.
Miss Mansfield, listen to me very carefully. We're getting a little beyond ourselves.
Okay, but I have some pictures for you.
We're getting beyond ourselves.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Andrew Kurt says dog owner Carolyn Mansfield owes for the cost to fix his Porsche. Andrew says he ran over Carolyn's unleashed dog.
Now, what time of the day were you riding down the country road?
It was 3 p.m. in the afternoon.
Where were you going?
Going to an apple orchard.
In December?
Shh. Miss Mansfield.
Yes,
Miss Mansfield.
Okay.
Is the weekend before Christmas. We're going up there to get some apple cider and some apple pies.
Okay. Tell me what happened with Miss Mansfield's dog.
I was driving along the road, and the dog just came straight out into the road, and it was in full stride when I hit the dog with the car.
Did you stop?
Yeah, I just took my foot off the gas and watched the dog in the rearview mirror. My fiance Christina was just like, oh my God, we just hit a dog. And then I pulled over at the first point that I could pull fully clear of the roadway.
And what did you do? Put your pictures down.
Okay.
We got out of the car and walked back towards where the dog had limped off the roadway, and I walked back into the woods. At that point, I met an old man and a young boy there. I asked them if they saw a dog. I told them I just hit a big black dog, and he said that it sounded like the neighbor's dog, and then we found it just laying on its side.
And what did you do?
The man sent the young boy down to the Mansfield's residence to get someone to come up to the dog. We just stood there with the dog, and it was just laying on its side, panting. And then Charlie, her son, brought a pickup truck up, and we put a blanket down, put the dog on the blanket, and lifted the dog into the back of the truck.
Okay. Can I see pictures of your car? I see
Yes.
that you have pictures of the car there. I'm surprised that what's this dog's name, Lucky?
Lucky.
He sure was lucky.
Well,
because I'm surprised that this dog survived.
Lucky was not supposed to survive overnight. She had severe injuries.
Okay, but she did?
She's among the land of the living.
Good, and she's now in a fenced-in yard.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're using the buried wire with the electric shock, and she's
That sounds like what you should have been using before.
And that's exactly why I paid my own vet bills, and I decided I would not sue somebody for hitting the dog, because I was trying to take my responsibility and pay the dog's vet
Ms.
bills.
Mansfield, you have a law where you live that says that dogs have to be under your control at all times, either on a leash if they're out, in a fenced yard, or in your home. But for the fact that you broke the law, your dog would not have been hit.
May I show you some of these pictures and explain one thing?
You can show me anything you like.
Okay.
You must accept the fact that but for the fact that you broke the rules, your dog would not have been hit.
Okay, but I contend the dog may not have been in the road. We have a friend who was killed right there where Mr. Kurtz pulled over. He ran right into that tree. If you don't negotiate that turn, you're going to hit that tree. And in fact, before you hit it, you will go straight over our neighbor's driveway.
Listen to me!
To lay down.
Miss Mansfield, I don't care if he went up into your neighbor's living room.
But that would be private
listen to me.
Okay.
If he went up into your neighbor's living room and hit your dog, the rule says Your dog must be under your control at all times. But for the fact that you, who had notice that your dog got out frequently and roamed around and was safe most of the time. Most of the time, she was really smart and really lucky. Didn't hurt anybody, didn't get hurt herself. This time she did, and it's your fault.
Okay,
oh, listen to me. Only your fault because his car did not jump up on your front porch and go into your living room and hit Lucky while she was sitting on the sofa watching TV. That didn't happen.
Excuse me, but if it was going at an unsafe speed in a residential area, it could have been Dylan. It could have been the little boy at the end of the driveway with my dog.
It could have been E.T.
But it wasn't.
It was your dog that was violating the law. You owe him $1,000. That's his deductible.
Could my son,
Judgment for the plaintiff. Step out. Goodbye.
Number 193 on the calendar in the matter of Richard versus Davis. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Is this your mother?
Yes.
Mr. Richard, it is your claim that the defendant, along with 2 others, vandalized your home a little over a year ago. Is that right? Now, Ms. Davis says that while she was with these 2 other people who vandalized your home, she really didn't do anything herself. She was just in the car with them.
Yes.
Okay. Let me see if I understand the relationship between the 2 of you. Your mother was dating his son.
No, she wasn't dating his son.
She was what with his son?
He worked on her cars and he helped fix things around her house.
You mean there was no relationship other than that of a handyman with your mother?
Yes.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right, sir?
No, sir.
It is your claim that your son and this lady had a relationship.
My son lived with her about 2 years.
In her house?
In her house.
And it is your claim that the relationship was more than that of just a handyman?
Yes.
And at some point, you got annoyed with his son?
Yes.
Why, Miss Davis? I'd like you to speak up so I can hear you. I'm getting older.
He threatened my mom's life. He put his...
Why would he do that?
He was crazy. He was jealous. I don't know.
He was jealous? Well, why would a handyman be jealous of your mother?
He liked her and she didn't want nothing to do with him.
Did he live in your house?
For a couple months.
So the answer is he lived in your house?
Yes.
And he liked your mother?
Yes.
And she didn't like him?
No.
Tell me about the vandalism to your house, Mr. Richard.
They thrown 2 buckets of paint through the window, and it went all over the furniture and carpet and everything.
Do you have pictures of the house?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I see it, please? Had your son moved home when this happened?
No, he was living with me because we was remodeling the place.
What I'm asking you, Mr. Richard, is had your son left Miss Davis's home at that point?
Yes.
Now, tell me what happened on June 30th, Miss Davis. And I want you to keep your voice up and keep your eyes over here.
He had called my mom several times that day, threatening her life. And
you mean his son?
Yes. And he had called my grandparents, threatening them. He threatened me and my brother's life. I told a couple of my friends what he had been saying, and...
You told who?
2 of my friends.
Names?
Chuck and...
Chuck what? Who else did you tell?
Well, his friend. I don't know his name.
You told them what?
What his son had been doing.
Okay. And then what happened?
They said they knew how to get back at him. They got 2 cans of paint, and we drove in his car.
In whose car?
Chuck's.
And where did you go?
To his son's house.
Well, you didn't know Chuck's friend, is that right?
No, I'd only met him a couple times.
And Chuck? Does Chuck know his son?
Yeah, he's met him.
Where?
At my mom's house.
But you knew where he lived?
Yes.
They didn't know where he lived. So you had to give them directions?
Yes.
Right. So you gave them directions on how to get there. And what happened when they got there?
They pulled up in front of his house and got out, threw the paint through the windows, got back in the car and left.
On June 30th, my friends took it upon themselves to vandalize Tony Richards' house. That's what you wrote here, right? As is stated in the police report, I didn't throw the paint, so no charges were filed. Did you tell the police that you went to Chuck's friend's house when they gathered the paint together?
No.
No. Did you tell the police that you gave them directions on how to get to Mr. Richards' house?
No.
No. How come you told me? Because I asked you?
Yes.
And because you knew that you couldn't lie to me. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, what makes you think that you are not responsible for the damage to Mr. Richards' house?
Because I didn't do it.
Because what?
I didn't actually throw the paint.
Is there something wrong with you?
No.
You are responsible. You instigated it. You were involved in gathering the materials for the vandalism. You were responsible for directing these other two people, if they were in fact the ones that threw the paint, directing them how to get to Mr. Richards' home, something that they did not know. You are responsible. You understand?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Your son is in all probability a nut. That doesn't mean that she wasn't a lonely lady, but your son is a nut.
And later today...
How long have you been married, sir?
43 years, August 31st.
And without asking you anymore, you've had enough.
That's right.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. William Richards says his son's former friend vandalized his home with paint. Crystal Davis says she didn't act alone.
Now, you decided not to pursue this matter because your son asked you not to. Is that right?
My son did it on his own. I didn't know nothing about it.
Did what on his own?
He didn't press charges on it because he made a deal with her mother.
Drop the charges. Shh.
That she would not file charges against him if he wouldn't file charges against them. The next day, she filed charges against my son.
Is your son in jail now?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he crazy?
No, ma'am.
How many times has your son been arrested?
I say 3 or 4 times.
That is not true.
Step up. Ms. Davis, clearly you exercised poor judgment in having this person move into your house. I'm surmising that there was more to this relationship than either you're telling me or that your daughter's telling me.
Oh, there's more.
There's more. Okay. Do you know how many times Mr. Richards' son was arrested?
36 times on separate accounts.
Can I see, please?
Yes.
How many of those involved you?
He was never arrested on my account, unfortunately.
Okay, but he was arrested 36 times on other charges.
On other charges, such as armed robbery, all those there listed.
Check if the defendant's criminal history reveals that he has been arrested 36 times on such violent charges as armed robbery, breaking and entering, prowling, burglary, DUI, carrying a concealed weapon, a machete, drug possession, felony battery.
I don't know nothing about that.
Oh, well, you got to listen. You got to pay more attention to what's happening in your own family, Mr. Richard. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That, madam, does not excuse trashing his house. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I see the bill for cleanup of this house, please?
Your Honor.
What?
May I get to say something
Sure.
else? All these papers here are restraining orders that I filed.
I think he's a bad person. Miss Davis, that doesn't give your daughter license to trash Mr. Richards' house. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Right, it doesn't give her license to take the law into her own hands and throw paint through a window at his house.
I understand that, Your
Good,
Honor.
that's all.
It's not all. What this man has put us through and
Which
my
man?
family, his son.
He is not responsible for his 43-year-old son. Are you responsible for what your daughter did?
In a way, yes, I guess I am.
Good, then you can pay the damages. His son put you through a lot. What possible motive would you have to bring a nut into your house?
He was referred to me as a mechanic and a handyman.
So you bring a 40-some-odd-year-old man into your house. You have no idea about his background. It turns out he's been arrested 36 times. That doesn't make you a genius.
Well,
in any event, his son may have caused you all kinds of aggravation, but that doesn't give your daughter license to trash Mr. Richards' house. And if you don't see it, then I understand why you brought this 40-year-old felon into your house.
Your Honor.
What?
My son met her at a bar.
Listen to me. Your son is where he belongs. He is in jail. I hope.
But this is what brought everything up.
Listen to me.
To this deal.
Listen to me.
So.
Your son is in all probability a nut. That doesn't mean that she wasn't a lonely lady. But your son is a nut. That doesn't excuse what she did, and for that you're going to get paid. And since her mother says, well, I'm partially responsible for what she did, she can help.
Well, I certainly wish the law had helped us in all this whole time.
Madam, if you exercised better judgment, you wouldn't be standing here today. That doesn't excuse what Mr. Richards' son did to you and your family. It doesn't excuse the fact that the law may have been slow in moving to get him out of your life, but it does not excuse your daughter's criminal behavior.
So what about responsibility of the two gentlemen who did do actually throwing of the paint?
Listen, you can, if you like, sue them and say, my daughter didn't act alone. There were three of you. It's not up to him to go find these two other people. She doesn't even know the name of one of them, according to her, which I don't believe. How is he supposed to find out where they are? She knows where they are. She enlisted their assistance. It's her responsibility. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,000. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The system is certainly for the criminal, not for the innocent victims.
She's playing the victim because every time something comes up, she calls the police, has them arrested for stalking.
She would never got involved with something like that if it hadn't have been that this man had been harassing me.
He met her in a bar. 15 minutes later, they had her out on the hood of a car.
His son has stalked my mom.
I don't know that. That was between my son and her mother.
I didn't actually do it, and anything he did get, he deserves.
I would have pressed charges against her for criminal.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Dallahan versus Tinley, step forward.
Plaintiff Ross Dallahan is suing his daughter, day spa owner Karen Tinley, for the return of $500 he paid for a family picture. Karen says her father is bitter because her mother left him.
Mr. Dallahan, Miss Tinley is your daughter.
Yes, it is.
And you are suing your daughter for $500 because you say you gave her $500 and there were certain stipulations. There was a contract. The contract was she was to do certain things. She was to prepare a photo album. She was supposed to bring grandchildren to come to visit you and a couple of other things, which she didn't do. And therefore, since she didn't fulfill her portion of the contract, you want your money back.
That's right.
Your daughter says that this money was given without stipulation and that you're just angry because your wife doesn't want to come back to you. Your wife left you, sir?
Yes, she does.
And this is your mother, I assume?
Correct.
And she's happy being without you and she doesn't want any part of you and therefore you're angry, so you want this money back.
That's correct.
How long have you been married, sir?
43 years, August 31st.
And without asking you any more, you've had enough.
That's right.
You fulfilled your sentence.
Thank you.
Mr. Dallahan, got it?
No, I don't.
So tell me about this $500 that you gave your daughter.
On April 14th of this year, my wife decided that she would begin talking to me after all efforts of reconciliation, trying to go to marriage counseling would not work. She said that she would start talking to me again, and she agreed that she would start dating me again, and as a result, I gave her $1,400 with no stipulation.
Okay.
That's my wife.
Okay.
The same day, I gave my daughter Karen $500 with stipulation.
And what did you say to her when you gave her the $500, and what did she say to you?
First of all, I thanked her for taking good care of my wife.
Okay.
And I said, I want you to have this money, but there are three things that I want from this. One is a family album to show that you're going to be part of my family again and let me be a father to the family, which you've never been able to do. The other stipulation was that she allowed me as a father to prepare a meal for her, her husband, and two daughters to come into my home so I could tell them as a father what I would like to see as a family reconciling.
Okay.
And the third one was take the money that I give you that is left over from the album. I want you to divide between the four of you.
Which four?
Her husband and her two daughters.
So?
So, the first of the next month, I talked to my wife on the phone again, and I asked her about if she had the album made for me, and she said no, because she's been hauling the girls around too much.
Go ahead.
Anyway, I said, well, can I come by the house and pick up the album? My wife said, I don't think that's a good idea.
She said that there was no album. How could you pick it up if there was no album?
That's right.
Yeah.
She never did that.
Okay.
So then my wife decided to break off all communication with me, and as a result, because I didn't get what I asked for, I called up, and even though she wouldn't answer the phone, I left a message that I wanted the money returned. And she did not return the money.
Okay. Ms. Tinley, I'll hear you.
For one thing, there was never any photo album mentioned at all.
Look at me. What was mentioned? He handed you $500.
Right.
What did he say?
He says, well, here's $500 for taking such good care of your mom. And I says, I don't mind taking care of my mom. You know, she's my mom. I love her. I'd do anything for her. So to me, that was a gift.
Well, what did he say about photo?
He said, I would like to have a family picture. And I said, I don't have one. He says, well, he says, you've got money. He says, you can have one made. I didn't have a problem with that.
Good.
So...
What else? Did he say anything about bringing your family over to his house?
Not to his house. He says, I have something I want to tell your family. Because up to this point, he has never admitted that he was wrongdoing with my mom or anything. And he admitted that to my mom that day. He says, everything that has happened is my fault. And I was surprised to hear that.
Okay.
But 2 weeks later, I mean, I don't have a family that lives at home. So to get a family picture done in 2 weeks is a little bit impossible for us.
Okay. So what happened? So he called and said, where's the picture?
Conversations, he'd been calling and was not being very nice on the phone. So we quit answering the phone. If his number came up, we didn't answer the phone. 2 weeks later, one of the messages was, if you don't do what I want you to, you know, you just send the money back, baby. That was his words. I remember that.
All right. So what I'm getting, Miss Tinley, is minimally, in his head, he expected a family picture for this $500.
Right.
In his head. You have a picture of you at home?
I do.
You have a picture of your two daughters at home?
I do.
So this is what I want you to do. I want you to take a picture of you, the two girls, take them over to a drugstore where they have one of those machines where you put the pictures in and it makes a copy?
Right.
You're prepared to do that?
I can do that. I can do that at my home.
Perfect. I want you to do that. You're going to do that within the next 3 days.
I can do that.
And then you're going to send it to your father.
Okay.
That's what you're going to get, sir. Right?
That's right.
Great. Very good. And then she gets to keep the $500. But I know this is going to be difficult for you. But there'll be a time, sir, that I'm telling you, you're a very nice-looking man.
Thank you.
And you seem to have lots of personality. And you've got a little bit of zip in your step. Yet, right?
That's right.
You're going to find somebody who's just going to be crazy about you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Not her.
Not me.
Good luck.
Oh, thank you.
Bye-bye.
These are excused. Yeah, this is case number 274 on the calendar in the matter of Zane versus Flores. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
Miss Zane, according to what I read, you met the defendant in May of 2004. Where did you meet him?
I met him at a neighborhood bar.
Remember what date in May?
It was the first Friday in May. I think it was the 6th.
According to you, you and the defendant had a romantic relationship.
Correct.
And there came a time when he needed some money, 2 or 3 separate occasions. You loaned him the money, and the repayment was supposed to be work done in your home by the defendant. You paid him the money.
Correct.
He never did the work. Or he started the work but never completed it. And some he never did.
Well, he didn't do very much.
And so you want the money back.
Correct.
Mr. Flores says that there was never a romantic relationship that existed between the two of you, that you hired him to do work in your home. He performed the work. You never paid him. And he's got a counterclaim for that work. And both of you have claims against each other for harassment. Each of you say the other is harassing. So, what was the first loan, how much, And how did you give him the money?
I gave the money to him in cash.
For what?
It was for an automobile.
When was that?
That was June 6th, 2004.
And how much was it?
It was for $750.
So you gave him $750 then, and how was he supposed to pay you back that money?
He was supposed to perform work on my house.
What work, specifically, for the $750?
Okay, he was supposed to finish the trim around a sunroom, install a bathroom vanity and sink, repair to bathroom tile, cleaning, caulking, and treating mold and mildew.
I see you're looking at something. What is it that you're looking at?
I'm looking at the receipts he signed.
Can I see them, please? Did he do any of this work?
The only thing that he did, he mowed the lawn one time, he cut down a tree in the front yard, he power washed the front of the house.
And when did he perform this work?
Probably June 5th, maybe the 4th. First week in June.
Look, I asked you when the first money that you gave him was. You said it was June 6, 2004. You gave him $750 for a car.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, $750. Here's the receipt, and I have it dated 6/21/04.
Mm-hmm.
And he was supposed to finish trim around the sunroom, install a bathroom vanity, and he signed this thing, and you signed it, and it says paid in advance. But now you say that he did this work on June 4th. So he did the work.
He did part of the work.
Okay, so he did part of the work.
Right.
Good. Now, when was the next time you gave him money?
The next time I gave him money would have been a week later, maybe 10 days later.
Now, when did you start to have a romantic relationship with Mr. Flores?
Probably the second week of May.
Well, tell me about the nature of your romantic relationship.
The nature of our romantic relationship was he told me he was unmarried.
Did you go out for dinner?
We sat at Chili's one day, and he told me he was divorced in April 2004.
Did you ever take her to Chili's, sir?
Chili's?
Chili's restaurant.
Never.
Never?
Never did. Not a Chili's restaurant. Never
Did you ever take her to any restaurants, Mr. Flores?
No.
Oh, it's not it. Listen to me, Mr. Flores. I know everything.
No, ma'am. I only went to one, to Jackie D's. That was on the 19th of August. That's the last time we went out together. And...
Mr. Flores, you're not following what I'm saying, sir.
Okay.
Maybe we're having a communications problem.
Okay.
Did you ever go out to eat with the plaintiff?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Mr. Flores, you don't think that you're smarter than I am, do you?
No, ma'am.
Shh. You're not. So that when I ask you a question, you would do well to answer the question directly, truthfully the first time, so that you and I don't have to do a dance around the truth. Do I make myself clear?
Correct.
How many times were you and the plaintiff out for dinner?
Like two,
Look up.
2 or 3 times.
Okay. And of the 2 or 3 times, according to you, the one place that you never went was Chili's.
Exactly.
Where did you go when you went out for dinner?
Jackie D's.
Do you remember the days that you went to Jackie D's?
Exactly. 8/19.
That was the last time, sir.
That was
before
the last
that.
time. And before that, I went out with her to a another place. I can't recall the name of it.
And do you remember about what time you got home?
Yeah, I believe I got home like around like 12:30 or 1 o'clock.
Now, at the time, Mr. Flores, you were living with whom?
My wife.
Where did you tell your wife you were on those evenings, Mr. Flores?
I told her I was out in a. I told her I was out in a business.
You told your wife you were out on business?
Yes, with the lady I was working on.
No, Mr. Listen to me, sir.
Okay.
Your wife is not an idiot, is she?
No, believe me, she's not.
Right. So when you were out until 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning, you wouldn't have told your wife that you were out with a lady discussing cleaning the mold out of her bathroom, right? So you told your wife that you were out on business, correct?
Yes.
And that was a lie. Is not an answer, Mr. Flores.
No, it wasn't a lie. She had called me the same day to meet her in Jackie D's so we could discuss about the payment of paying me for the job I did at her
How
house.
long did that take, Mr. Flores?
That took us at least an hour or two. We had a couple of drinks. We sat down, and next thing you know, it was like around 12:30, 1 o'clock. We got into an argument. She left me there. I had to call my brother to pick me up, and That was it.
Well, just a second. Why was that? How did you get there?
She picked me up.
Picked you up from where?
She picked me up from the well, the wishing well.
What's the
That's
wishing
the
well?
neighborhood bar where I met her in the beginning.
So she picked you up at one bar and you went someplace else to
Yes.
discuss it?
Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't you discuss the payment at the wishing well, sir?
Because she didn't want to stay there.
Miss
And
Flores,
that was it.
is that you?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
understand that he's full of baloney, don't you? Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that we understand each other.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
So it's rather interesting. Social Security Administration's really going to be interested in the fact that somebody who suffers for 10 years from manic depression is able to do heavy manual labor in somebody's house for $2,500 in cash.
And later today,
Where were you working?
I wasn't working at that very present time.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Cynthia Zane says ex-boyfriend George Flores owes for the return of money she paid him to work on her home. Cynthia says George lied about being divorced.
Now, so you advanced him in total $3,000.
Yes.
And he only performed part of the work.
Right.
And after the romance was over,
After he
recording-
did the first... Oh, no. This went on until August 22nd. August 22nd was the last time I seen George.
Well, tell me about August 22nd.
August 22nd, we went to Jackie D's, and that's when we got in the argument because I confronted him. He knew that I was on the case about him being married. He kept denying it over and over, and I just didn't buy it. And that was that. I just didn't want anything to do with him after that.
Well, how did you find out he was married?
I got a tip from somebody, and then I went to the records in Pasco County, and I got his address, and it says George W. Flores and Letitia Flores, and it gave the address. So that's how I knew how to serve him the papers.
Okay. Now, tell me about the harassment.
The harassment?
Yeah.
Basically, the harassment didn't start. I have call logs. I shared a phone with him, with Sprint. He had, shared minutes. And I gave him my phone.
You gave him a phone?
Right.
Is that right, sir?
Yes, it is.
Why would she give you a phone?
To keep in contact with her, to finish up on a job.
This many times a day highlighted.
That's all, because I had no phone for her to get in contact with me whatsoever.
You were living home with your wife.
Yes, I was.
Why
but
couldn't she call you at home if this was a business proposition?
I do not have a home phone. That's the reason why she
He
got
has a
the
home phone. It's
Just a
on here.
second. Your wife doesn't have a home phone?
No, we have a cell phone.
Well, if she had to get in touch with you, and if the only phone that you had was a cell phone, why didn't she call your wife and say, listen, I'm a client of your husband's?
Because of the fact is, she kept all the time shutting off the phone that she had bought, and the one that my wife had was always only for emergency purposes. And that's the reason she got the phone for me, because I told her I couldn't call her from my wife's phone.
What kind of work do you do?
Me, I'm on SSI, ma'am.
What's the nature of your disability, Mr. Flores?
Mental depression.
How long have you been on SSI?
10 years.
You have children, Mr. Flores?
Yes, I do.
How old are they?
My oldest is 10 years old,
Yes.
and the other one's 7, and the other one is 5.
So you're not that depressed?
Oh,
Huh?
I guess not.
I guess not.
Yeah.
And I'm real interested in your counterclaim, because your counterclaim is for $3,000. Because according to you, Mr. Flores, you had a verbal contract with the plaintiff for $2,500 to do labor on her home.
Exactly.
So you're not too depressed to do labor, because you say you completed the work. Isn't that right?
Right.
So it's rather interesting. Social Security Administration is really going to be interested in the fact that somebody who suffers for 10 years from manic depression is able to do heavy manual labor in somebody's house for $2,500 in cash.
Well, it was basically...
Well, what?
Well, basically, when she hired me, it was only to clean up the house.
Is this the first time in 10 years, Mr. Flores, that
Yes.
you performed manual labor?
Yes, ma'am.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're telling me in 10 years, sir, aside from making 2 or 3 children, the only work that you've done was for the plaintiff. in the amount of $2,500 for which you were not paid. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
And it was just your bad luck that that job ended you up in court before me.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're going to get to tell that story all over again, Mr. Flores, to the Social Security Administration, because I'm going to see to it that they get the tape. Do we understand each other?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
She says she doesn't have your clothing. How do I know that she
She
didn't
had
take it
her
with you?
boyfriend come to my house and say, DYS appreciates your donation. That's the local juvenile facility.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Cynthia Zane says ex-boyfriend George Flores owes for the return of money she paid him to work on her home. Cynthia says George lied about being divorced.
Okay, I just want to tell you this. It's very hard for me to put a dollar figure on the work that he did. Gave him $3,000. Let's say he power washed the front, he power washed the driveway, he cut down a tree in the front of the house. So you figure, even if he was a very high-power person, he would be entitled to $1,500. You deduct that from what you paid him, which means that he owes you $1,500 because you gave him the money. I believe that you gave him the money, and I believe that he did not perform the work satisfactorily. And I do not believe that he performed the work and you didn't give him any money, which is what he says, because he's a scam artist. And he's been scamming people of the United States of America for 10 years.
He has. I know that.
Oh, you know that?
I know
that
that.
because in his spare time he goes to Mickey D's or Dickie D's or wherever he goes to drink. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500 on a claim. His counterclaim is dismissed. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
George is a scammer. I got caught up in it. 3 months later, I finally figured him out.
She needed help fixing up her house and stuff. At the time, I said, sure, why not?
He was married. He told me he was not married.
We may end up getting divorced over this, yes.
Lying all around. He's a chronic, compulsive liar.
Basically, one thing led to another. And this is it. I'm here.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Baker versus Williams. Step forward, please.
23-year-old cocktail waitress April Baker is suing her ex-boyfriend's sister, 26-year-old medical secretary Angela Williams, for the return of her belongings. Angela says April stole her car.
Ms. Baker, you used to live in the apartment or the home of the defendant, who is the sister of your former boyfriend. Is that
Yes,
right?
Your Honor.
And this is the former boyfriend?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you claim that you were forced to move out because there was some sort of an altercation or an argument. And when you moved out, the defendant kept a lot of your property. You want to be compensated to the tune of $2,000 for that property. When did you move in with them?
It was May.
Why did you move in with them?
I was seeing her brother, so I decided that when I came back from vacation, I would move back in to the same area with them.
Where were you working?
I wasn't working at that very present time.
Immediately prior to that very present time, when was your last employment?
Before I moved to Worcester.
Give me a month
Okay,
and
that
a
would have
year.
been in February of 2004.
And what kind of work were you doing in February of 2000?
I was hostessing in a Greek restaurant in Tennessee.
When you moved from Tennessee to where?
To Worcester.
And how did you get there?
I took a bus.
How many suitcases did you have?
Your Honor, they weren't suitcases. They were very big Tupperware containers with lids.
And what was in the 2 Tupperware containers?
One of the containers contained all of my shoes and boots, and the other one contained all of my clothing belongings.
And when you left their house, what did you take with you?
Absolutely nothing, except for what I had on my person.
Do you have any of her property?
No, ma'am.
Where is it?
As far as I know, she took it with her when she stole my vehicle.
What month was that?
That was in July.
What do you mean she stole your vehicle?
She did take it, said that she'd be back, and never came back.
She didn't come back?
No, ma'am.
How long did she remain away?
She was gone that whole night, the whole next day. I finally got a phone call telling me that I could find my keys at her new boyfriend's house, and my car was at her job. So I had to find a ride to get my keys and my vehicle.
That sound familiar to you?
Vaguely, that is...
Not vaguely. Does that sound familiar to you?
That is pretty much the case, but not all the way, no. But yes.
So if you left, say, July 1st or 2nd, in her car, and you didn't come back, and you went to a new boyfriend's house, You're telling me that you just left with the clothes on your back and you didn't take anything with you?
Absolutely, Your Honor. I didn't leave to a new boyfriend's house. I left in the middle of the night. It was midnight Thursday, July the 2nd.
Where did you go?
I went to a friend's house to have a couple of drinks. I got intoxicated and did not drive back to her house because I'm not going to drive her car intoxicated. I did have her car dropped to my work so that she could pick it up. And the keys were where she said they were, at that same person's house. But it was not, I did not take any of my belongings with me. I did not plan on being gone or not coming back. I did not steal her car.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Step up. What's your name?
Brian. Brian Williams.
Mr. Williams, do you have any of Miss Baker's property?
No, I do not.
Look at me. Did you throw it away?
No, I did not.
Do you know of anyone who threw it away?
No, I do not.
Well, I think you probably do. I think you probably either tossed her stuff or got rid of some of her stuff because you were annoyed with her. But you have to have some proof of that. She says she doesn't have your clothing. How do I know that she didn't take it with you?
She had her boyfriend come to my house and say, DYS appreciates your donation. That's the local juvenile facility.
Really? Did you say that to her?
No, ma'am.
Did you say
her
anything?
Her boyfriend said that to me.
Did you say it to anyone?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. Miss Williams, I have a feeling that you probably kept some of her stuff, and maybe you donated because you were really annoyed with her. That I can understand.
No, I did not, Your Honor.
Well, somebody did. Let me see what you have there. Okay. Okay. $361, the legitimate bills that I have that you can establish here. Now, I don't know whether and how much they didn't return, but I know that you didn't return some stuff because I know you were annoyed. That's just common sense, that if she left there, you found some of her stuff there, and I believe that you did return some of her stuff.
Everything was gone when she stole my car, Your Honor. I don't
What?
owe her anything.
No, you're full of baloney. Don't believe you. I also don't believe that she had $2,000 worth of clothes because she didn't have a job.
Your Honor.
Maybe $360 worth of stuff. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $360. That's all.
This is case number 281 on the calendar in the matter of Bertoldo versus Yancey. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Ms. Bertoldo, according to what I've read, the defendant commissioned you to paint a mural on her bedroom ceiling.
Yes.
You were supposed to get $2,000 for the project. The defendant was dissatisfied with the job. She didn't pay you the rest and didn't complete the job. You want to be paid. Ms. Yancey said that the job was really not just for one room, but it was a two-project deal for the bedroom and your bathroom, that she gave you the $500. She was dissatisfied with the job. She told you to keep the $500 and not to bother to come back to finish the project.
Correct.
And she erased the mural.
Yes.
How did you find her?
Actually, she happens to be a friend of mine. Well, she's a client also. And she's in the business. We're in the service business. We're in the beauty business. She's a manicurist. I'm an esthetician. So she's aware of customer service.
Listen to me. I asked you how you knew her.
Oh, well, in a business. We're in the business.
You're an esthetician. You do
Yes.
facials.
Yes, I do.
You do manicures.
I'm a manicurist, yes.
How did you find out that she was a painter?
I stopped by at the salon where she works at to get a body massage, and there's a mural there. So I'm talking to the girls, and I'm talking to her, and I say, I'd like to have a mural painted in my house. Oh, and then she goes, Laurel is excellent, one of the girls from the salon said. I said, oh, fabulous. You know, I know Laurel. I would love to give her the business.
Was the mural that you saw in the salon a mural that was painted by the plaintiff?
It was the mural that I would like to have in the bathroom.
Now listen to me. Was the mural that you saw in the salon a mural that was painted by the plaintiff?
No.
Did you ever see any of her work?
No.
So you hired her without seeing any samples of her work?
By referral only, yes.
Just answer my question. You hired her without seeing whether or not she could paint?
Correctly, yes.
Did you tell her what you wanted?
Oh, absolutely. I even showed her a picture.
Let me see the picture that you showed her.
This is the sky, this is the wrought iron, and this is the puffy clouds I wanted.
Did she show you this picture?
She did. We discussed the wrought iron. I thought in that room it wouldn't be a good idea to put wrought iron. I discussed putting like a scroll or some kind of border around the room because it's a concave ceiling. So we discussed that. She said, okay, fine, if you don't want to do that, you know.
Now, this was the work evidently for the bedroom. What about the work she says she wanted to do for the bathroom?
She discussed the bathroom, but that wasn't a set anything. She didn't like a mural actually somebody else did in the bathroom and wanted me to change it.
So you already had a mural in the bathroom?
That she didn't like.
It was unfinished.
Why was it unfinished?
Because the lady never came back to finish it.
Okay. When did you start
This is an artist thing.
When did you start to work?
I sat up the scaffolding ladder on the 15th, August 15th, and I put my projector out.
The arrangement was $2,000? Yes. $2,000 to do just the bedroom?
Just the bedroom, yes.
Did you take pictures of your finished work?
Yes.
Can I see the pictures, please?
Also, I have receipts of paint, if you want.
Okay.
Excuse me. I also have a video I'd like to show you.
Just wait a second. Okay. You set up your scaffolding on the 15th, and did you start to paint on the 15th?
No, I started to paint on the 16th.
And you painted on the 16th and 17th?
And 17th. The 17th, I actually spoke to her in the morning. She was home, and she told me how much she loved it. It was great. She laid on the floor, and she loved it, and she couldn't wait until it was done, and she was extremely excited.
What happened by the 17th?
I left on the 17th that night, and she wasn't home. She was still at work, and I called her and left her a message, basically if she wanted anything else, just to further the mural. That night she said, oh, I don't know, I still think I want the wrought iron. And so I said, okay, you know, take a couple days, think about it. I'll return on the 22nd, and we'll discuss what you want, and then I'll continue painting. On the 22nd, I called her, and she said, I'm unhappy with your work, I'm not paying you, but was also telling me, I respect you, and I'm going to refer people to you, and la la la.
So far, is that the timeline? She came on the 15th, set up the scaffolding. She worked on the 16th and 17th.
Correct.
And then she called you on the 22nd.
That's correct.
And what did you tell her on the 22nd?
I told her that she could keep the $500. I didn't feel like she did an appropriate job for $2,000, and I didn't want her to come back and do anything else in my house because obviously the quality of her work wasn't a $2,000 work. And when she says, well, I'll come and fix it for you, how can you fix something that you don't know how to do?
Okay.
I really did not want to, I want to spare her feelings a little bit. So obviously by telling her, no, that's it, I'm done with you, she should have read me to say, all right.
Could you show me the video?
Oh, absolutely. I want to be able to show you the whole picture of the mural. This is what Laurel calls herself a muralist here. This looks like a sponge paint. There's absolutely no depth to that. The closer you get to look at that, if you can see it, all it looks is like an overcast day, if that. It's like a wannabe sky. The wrought iron that's supposed to be, or the scrolls there, is unfinished. The brown doesn't contour properly. That she highlighted. The white ran off the brown. Some parts are thicker than others. In the middle there, I asked for some dahlias, some little pretty dahlias to come through. Those are not dahlias. That's what you call wannabe daisies. This side is supposed to be where I have these fairies kind of peekabooing through the clouds. But instead, what do I get? Look at that. It looks like a little bee that's falling off the sky. I don't take that. That's unacceptable also. This spider web junk that she drew here, I want to make sure that that gets erased. These unfinished scrolls, same. Look at that. So I have invited Laurel to come in and witness me erasing this mural, and that is to prove to her that it's not that I don't want to pay her the money, it's to show her that her work is unprofessional.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
I'd rather have that customer take off than for her to go badmouth me around saying what a lousy facialist I am. I'd rather...
She's going to do that anyway.
And later today,
What did you write about him in your diary?
I don't know if I can say it.
I've heard everything.
Okay, that his sex wasn't the greatest.
Well, that would tick him off.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Artist Laurel Bertoldo says her former friend, Joanna Yancey, owes for the unpaid balance on a custom mural. Joanna says the mural is hideous.
Miss Yancey, how long have you been doing facials?
Approximate 14 years.
You think that you're a good esthetician?
Yes.
Let's say you gave somebody a facial and you charged them $100 because it was a deep pore cleaning facial and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they put your fee on their credit card, and then they called the credit card company and put a stop payment on the fee because they said, you know what? I didn't really like this facial. I've had facials that were better. I've gone to people who really gave me a good massage during the facial, you know, who gave me a wonderful mask. I really didn't like her. She didn't shut her mouth for the whole hour that I was sitting there. There were no candles burning. It was not a pleasant experience, so I'm not going to pay her. Not that you didn't get a facial, but she had gotten a nicer facial elsewhere. Do you think that that's reasonable?
For me?
Yes. For you?
Okay, absolutely. You know what? I'd rather have that customer take off. Okay, I wasted maybe an hour of my time than for her to go bad-mouth me around saying what a lousy facialist I am. I'd rather...
She's going to do that anyway. She's going to do that anyway, Miss Yancey, and you know exactly what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when you go to a service provider and you go and get your hair cut and blown dry, and you really don't love the cut, you've had better cuts, and you've had better blow dries. What you do is you don't go back to the same person. You pay for the service. And hopefully when you go to an esthetician or where you go to somebody to get your hair cut, you've had references, you've seen the work that they do, you've spoken to friends, you've said, who did your hair? That looks great. Your skin looks terrific. Who does your facials? So you've gotten not only referrals, but you've seen the work that they do. You decided to pick this lady to do a mural. You had never seen any of her work. You didn't ask to see a portfolio. She said, I paint a mural. Certainly, Miss Yancey, I could not have done what she did. Officer Petrie Hawkinsburg maybe painted a bathroom or a kitchen in his lifetime, and he's a very talented guy. But I doubt whether he could have done what she did on the ceiling. Is that a fair statement?
Very fair.
So that what she did was unique. Now, it may not have been to your liking. That's your problem. You got to pay her. You want to erase it? You want to spray paint it? You want to turn it into Disney World? That's your prerogative. But you have to pay her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Art is just a matter of opinion, and I personally will not pay $2,000 for that.
It is, like she said, a matter of opinion. I think it's beautiful.
She thought she was good.
I did offer to go back and make any changes to make her happy.
There's no depth to the mural.
I think she just wanted to get off cheap.
There's supposed to be depth.
I'm just really not sure what her deal is.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Cower versus Cubitt. Step forward, please.
19-year-old student Stephen Cower is suing his ex-girlfriend, 19-year-old sales clerk Kristen Cubitt, for an unpaid loan to buy a motorcycle. Kristen says the money was a gift until Stephen read disparaging comments about him in her diary.
Mr. Cower, how long did you date Miss Cubitt before you loaned her this money for a motorcycle?
Your Honor, it was about 3.5 years on and off.
So you knew her well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me about this alleged loan for a motorcycle, which Miss Cubitt says is a gift.
Your Honor, I loaned her the money because right before I went to training for my 2 weeks in the National Guard, Your Honor.
Give me the month, day, and year, and show me the check.
August 11th, Your Honor.
Of 2004?
Yes, Your Honor.
And tell me how the loan came about.
I was in training down at the National Guard. We had been on and off in our relationship. And she came to me asking that she was going to purchase a bike, a motorcycle, Your Honor. And she asked me, she said she can only get $6,000 from her loaning institute, and she couldn't get the rest of the money, and she needed to pay the full amount in for the bike by the end of the month, Your Honor.
That's not true, Your Honor.
What does that mean? She needed to pay the whole amount?
Your Honor, she told me that the motorcycle place that she was getting the bike from said that she had to have the bike fully paid off by the end of the month. If not, she would lose all the money she had put into it. So when she came to me telling me how much it was, I said, well, I have about $2,800 in my bank account. I will give you what I can because I'm going to college and I don't know what I can give you though. And so when the time came around and we went to the bank, I took the $2,800 out and we had an agreement that she would pay me back half of it before my first college payment.
How was she supposed to pay you back the half? From what?
From working. She was working at Port Stop, Your Honor.
According to you, she was supposed to pay you back $1,400 before you went away to school, which was when?
Which is about a week and a half later, Your Honor.
How much did she make at this job that she was going to get $1,400 in a week and a half?
I don't know, Your Honor, but she said she was going to be able to pay me back that half amount, and I said, if you cannot, I will try to figure something out. I was being very sincere, Your Honor, and trying to help her out the best I could.
Mr. Cower, if you tell me something that doesn't make sense, I'm going to have a tendency to disbelieve everything that you tell me. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You gave her this money because you loved her. You don't love her anymore?
She was my first love, Your Honor. It's still tough to get over.
Get over it. Put a period, move on.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stephen Cower says ex-girlfriend Kristen Cubitt owes for a loan for a motorcycle. Kristen says Stephen read her diary.
Now, you've known this girl, according to you, a year and a half. She had a job where she made how much a week?
$150 a week.
Doing what?
A cashier at a gas station.
She made $150 a week. And she says, I don't have all the money that I need for this motorcycle, and I have to pay it all off. You gave her $2,800, and according to you, you had an agreement where she was going to pay you $1,400 back in a week. So my question is, where did you logically think, Mr. Cower, she was going to get that $1,400 from?
Your Honor, I probably wasn't thinking right because of my emotions of our relationship.
Did he give you $2,800?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
When?
On August 11th.
What'd you do with it?
He went to his bank and he stated, as long as I have $1,400 in my bank account, I will loan you what I can. He said, I love you. You've done a lot for me. I will give it to you. I said, okay. We went to his bank. He got an official bank check from his bank to Loomis Motorcycle, and he handed them the check.
I see that.
And then he went, like, probably, think it was on the 14th, he came into my house while I was showering and read my diary. The next day at work, he gave me my diary back and said that he was breaking up with me because he did not like what he read, and then said that I was going to pay him back or he was going to take me to court. The next day, there's a notice in the mail saying that I'm being sued for $2,800, which I could have swore was a gift. If I had known that I was going to have to pay him back, I would have just tagged it onto my motorcycle loan for my loan company in the first place.
Now, Miss Cubitt, just because